you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. And now here's your host, Rich Barris.
It's not that bad. Welcome to Inside the Numbers, folks. Little late. Had some technical difficulties. Cameras messed up, but actually this doesn't look too bad. It's not horrible. I just got to be careful when I hit it because I could bounce around a lot. All right, look, we're going to have Mike Cassidy on 12:30. You may remember him if you've been watching the show for a while. He is currently ahead by about 300 or so votes. It forced Representative Michael Guest to a runoff. We went over that district in pretty good detail on the voter file. All right. We'll talk about some of the primaries on Tuesday, and we'll talk about economics. Dom will join us, as always, on Fridays to do the Q&A. So get your questions in. All right. Before I move into economics, I just want to say that I don't really see the good news that a lot of people are talking about from Tuesday. And I mean, I have to address this. It's not low turnout like that in California struck me. And it strikes me for a couple of reasons. Why? Because one, everywhere else in the country, there were a lot of competitive races in California. Everywhere else in the country, we've seen really good turnout for midterm election. Even on both sides, Republicans are outvoting Democrats. That's just true. And that was even true in California. But overall turnout rates have been much better. And when you have such low depressing turnout, there's a lot of ballots that are still to be counted in California. But for right now, it looks like, if you're the right and you think California is the left's model for the rest of the country, then you shouldn't be jumping up and down for joy because an attorney general got recalled who will be replaced with another incredibly left-wing attorney general. So there's just no, I don't really see that there. David Valadao looks to me like he's going to lose in November. CD13 will not be competitive. I mean, it'll be competitive, but the chance of Republicans winning that district is not good now. And Mike Garcia, he's like the trend bucker. So if anyone can hold on, I do think it could be Mike Garcia, but even in that district, that's looking tougher. The prevailing wisdom out there from the establishment is that they think in November, the electorate is going to be better for them than it was on Tuesday. And that's asinine. That's completely, if you couldn't outvote Democrats in a primary midterm, which is older, whiter, more Republican than a general election, then good luck with that. I mean, I really do feel that's living in a dream world. That's why you always needed to reach beyond that electorate. And if you couldn't do that, I don't know how you intend to do it in November. All right. Anyway, however, the best news, I think, if you are somebody who's like an insurgent, is Mike Cassidy. That was the best news of Tuesday night. I asked, we didn't have the primary graphics and APIs from Decision Desk like we do sometimes. I asked them for two races. One was CD13 in California. The other one was Mississippi. And everybody, what are you talking about? And I'm like, I don't know. When we had him on, if you saw his appearance on Inside the Numbers, something rubbed me about Mike Cassidy, and like it something struck me. Something, I got off with Laura, and I'm like, I don't know. That guy was articulate. He seemed to, and it's a very conservative district, so it's incredibly difficult to unseat an incumbent. But when they don't see it coming, now they're going to see it coming, which is what we're going to talk about with him. They're going to see it coming, and they're going to throw a lot of money at him, which he is. I mean, I've heard him since Tuesday. He is under no delusions. They're going to throw a lot of money at him to stop him from beating Guest. And Guest is, look, I have to discuss in more detail this concept of trustworthiness, all right, in the Congress. And when I bring up, and it just happened the other day on Twitter, and I bring up the 16th and 17th Amendments, the log rolling deal, people are always like, can you, elaborate more on what what that means? This is why it's like an in the club thing versus an outside the club thing. It doesn't, your value as a legislator goes down with your colleagues if you have what's called a trustworthy dilemma, or what's what academics call it, the problem of trustworthiness. Mike, can you vote for my bill? In the next month or whatever, it's going to be up in committee. Can you vote for my bill? I'll tell you what. I know you're trying to push this, and you need this. I'll get you my vote and the vote of like 3 of my colleagues if you tell me that you're going to vote for me and you're going to vote for my bill next month when it comes up for a vote in committee or whatever it may be. If they feel that you're an outsider and you're somebody who really, I think they throw all these names on people like John McCain, he's a maverick. No, he's not. John McCain was a boys club, typical crusty old boys club man. He is not a maverick. A real maverick is somebody who has a problem of trustworthiness and cannot be counted on to deal with to come through on those what are essentially quid pro quos. I mean, this is a joke with Trump's impeachment. Everything's a quid pro quo, especially in foreign policy, but even in sausage making, of course it is. And if they feel that, and by the way, what's Kevin McCarthy's major area of trustworthiness that he's looking at right now? Will you vote for me if we take over the House of Representatives? Will you vote for me? And right now, Kevin McCarthy and his leadership committee has spent millions and millions of dollars. There were about 4 candidates that got buried with it. 2 alone in California between the 2 of them had Kevin McCarthy's groups for $4.5 million in the last 9 days of them. Why? Because Kevin didn't trust them to vote for him as speaker. That's the problem of trustworthiness that congressmen have to deal with. Cassidy is the insurgent here. So they don't know where he stands on things. They don't like him. Guest is a boys club guy. He may have a conservative record. A lot of people are pointing out, he's really conservative. He votes for Republicans this amount of the time. He may have that. But when it comes down to sticking up for Kevin McCarthy or sticking up for the voters of Mississippi 3, they strongly suspect, rightfully so, that Michael Cassidy is going to vote with the voters of Mississippi 3. And to them, that's a problem. It really is that simple. It really is. Now, why does that matter with the 16th, 17th Amendments? Because, especially in the Senate, before that log rolling deal, their value as a lawmaker had no enduring elasticity. It had no lasting endurance. It had no lasting value because at any given moment, a state legislator could have removed a trustworthy member, and then that would have been it. Not for nothing. Well, people say, well, yeah, but now the people have to decide. The people are distracted. The people don't always vote. Sometimes only 8 to 11% of them come out and vote in a primary. They find it easier to dupe the general population than they ever did to dupe the state legislatures, who had their at least part-time job was to keep an eye on them. So this idea of this concept of one man, one vote being better, in truth, folks, it doesn't play out that way. And I'm not the only one to do this. You can follow him on Twitter, but he has an incredible, well, it's a wealth. I'd call it a way. It's an incredible wealth of academic scholarship. Todd Sawicki, he's not there anymore, but most of the time that he spent at George Mason, he wrote about this. And like me, I mean, you can prove it with numbers. You can show it mathematically. It is simply true. So yeah, that's a question for another day, though. Because speaking of numbers, we have to talk about this. Last month to the end of May, we put out the Registered Voter Economic Confidence Index, and I'm going to show it to you real quick. Again, just for people who may not, it's a nice little crowd today. Nice little crowd for Friday. Get your questions in if you got questions. All right, Laura will grab them. All right, let's look at this again one more time. All right, before we show this, let me do full. So I have to fix this. For some reason, under here, it's a description of what the index is. But then when it opens out, it covers it. And we tried padding, margin, as CSS properties. I got to figure out why it's doing that. But anyway, what happened last month, which I made note of, was the convergence of the present situation and expectations sub-indexes. And obviously that will lead to a similar reading for the registered voter overall economic confidence index, because it is essentially an average of those two indexes, or an average of the 5 sub indicators that make up each of the sub indexes. So what did that tell me? That told me that people had for a while, and you can see it because the present situation index is below the expectations index. All right. So when we started this thing, and it wasn't even bad, it even ticked up for a little bit at first, under Joe Biden's not a great way to put it, because he really didn't implement any policy when it ticked up. There was a feeling the economy was turning around. And the truth of it is, people were feeling better after the April lockdown, April to May. By June, most of the economic indicators had already begun to recover. So Joe Biden kind of inherited this impression that the economy was just in a temporary blip from the shutdown, from COVID, and that as long as we got back to normal, that the economy would recover. What happened is we didn't get back to normal. And let's just face it, if Donald Trump was elected, we would have gotten back to normal, because he was done listening to what Ron DeSantis calls the Fauci fascism. He was over it. So of course, there would have been a voice for for commerce, for industry. When Joe Biden was elected, and again, don't take it from me, folks, go read the damn indexes at ISM. Read what they tell Richard Curtin at the the consumers themselves. Read it on your own. And you will see they were constantly worried that if they built those inventories back up and there was a shutdown, they would be stuck with all of that inventory. But then demand built up, so they had no choice but to try to meet it. And then we had a supply chain bottleneck. It all just was their worst fears coming true. Anyway, now that was going on, and consumers were feeling it, but it really wasn't a collapse at that point. And people still generally felt better about the future of the economy, even though things now in red are not great. 6 months from now in blue, I suspect they will be better. This last month, that ended. And you're looking at a 1/10 of a percentage point difference between the expectations index and the present situation index. Because, by the way, there are more indicators in the expectations index, it outweighs. So the overall index went to 36.3 as opposed to 36.4 because, and this is key, of that last and third component, which is dealing with with inflation. Total family income, expectations for total family income. And I'm headed somewhere here, I promise. But now people are saying, I don't feel good about the economy now. And 6 months from now, I don't think it's going to get any better. And that was a red flag. And I said, that indicates a recession. If you look at how the consumer confidence index, which is a broader audience, how it has performed over the years since 1985, when we have seen convergence of this nature, it generally represents a malaise, a feeling of things suck and I don't see how they're going to get any better. The old, what Ronald Reagan called under Jimmy Carter, a malaise. And unfortunately, since we released this, no less than 4 confidence index have come out and have backed up what we showed. Gallup, by the way, theirs almost to the T. Theirs was the lowest since the Great Recession. And then today, we got even worse news. And I'm going to just pull up Richard Curtin's statements because we'll look at, I'll just give you the forecasts. All right, but let me pull up the survey of consumers, which is a little bit different. The methodology is a little bit different, okay, than how the registered voter economic confidence index is almost, the methodology itself is almost identical to the consumer confidence index. Nonetheless, you can see what the survey of consumers saw here. And before we do, let me just go ahead and give me 2 seconds. Let me find the ranges again. Let's see. I got it. All right. So it came in overall at 50.2, and this is a preliminary reading. So let's hope, for the sake of all of us, in the 2-week mark, we're going to get, roughly 2 weeks. We're going to get an end of the month reading. That is the final reading. There's always the prelim and then the final. Sometimes they don't really change at all. Sometimes they get better. Sometimes they get worse. It's just the nature of it. Let's hope the prelim is a little bit negative compared. But what has happened since they did this preliminary reading has not been good. And in fact, the news just today, which we're going to go over, was even worse. But generally, we're looking at a reading of 50.2, the consent, which was a catastrophic miss. Catastrophic miss. First of all, they actually expected this to rise slightly, a tenth, but nonetheless, a gain of 1/10 of a percentage points. It was at 58.4 last month in the final reading. The consensus forecast was 58.5. They range from a low of 56 to a high of 61. This is a catastrophic miss, and it is a historic low. Year over year, the index overall, 41.3% down. The current conditions index, 37.5 down. The expectations index, again, why does that matter? What we just went over with the registered voter survey. It matters because you need people to feel like the future is brighter. You need that. For a healthy economy, you need it. The economy is a whole lot about sentiment, and that is down even more. Month over month change collapsed to 15.2%. The current was 12.5%. And let's read Rich's statements. Give me 1 second because this is horrible. All right. It's right down here. Consumer sentiment declined 14% from May, continuing a downward trend over the last year and reaching its lowest recorded value, comparable to the trough reached in the middle of the 1980s recession. 1980 recession. Again, continuing a downward trend over the last year and reaching its lowest recorded value, comparable to the trough reached in the middle of the 1980 recession. So I said, oh, well, it indicates a recession. Our index indicates a recession. And you know what I got in return? A whole bunch of people throwing a yield curve chart at me. I remember under Donald Trump, for less than 24 hours, the yield curve inverted and everybody had a heart attack. The economy still grew at 3%, but everybody had a heart attack. All components of the sentiment index fell this month, with the steepest decline in the year ahead outlook in business conditions, down 24% from May. And no, I'm not, by the way, throwing cold water on the concept of the yield curve overall. I'm simply saying that it will follow sentiment. And by the way, there has been an inversion. It was just temporary. Consumers' assessments of their personal financial situation worsened about 20%. And that is about what we found too, a 20% decline in our inflation indicator, which is expected total family income. 46% of consumers attributed their negative views to inflation, up from 38% in May. This share has only been exceeded once since 1981 during the Great Recession. Overall, gas prices weighed heavily on consumers, which no surprise given the 65-cent increase in national gas prices from last month, according to AAA. Half of all consumers spontaneously mentioned gas during their interviews, compared with 30% in May and only 13% a year ago. Consumers expect gas prices to continue to rise a median of 25 cents over the next year, more than double the May reading and the second highest since 2015. In addition, a majority of consumers spontaneously mentioned supply shortages for the 9th consecutive month. All right, Why does this matter? Because we got no good news on the CPI this month. I want to point out, for those who remember, I even did a segment on it, for crying out loud. Amy Walter from Cook Political Report had been basically making the argument that the Biden administration had argued in a paper in an article that was supposed to be a political analysis article. My entire criticism was, if you're going to release an article on political analysis, don't speculate on something you don't know or understand, which clearly Amy Walter has no clue what she's talking about when it comes to the economy. She regurgitated the Biden administration's talking points on one, the fact there's nothing that Dems can do about inflation. That is demonstrably false. It cannot. Of course, they can. And two, that the move the Fed made is generally going to stem inflation from increasing. I've been telling you this now for months. That is not true. The Fed is a one-trick pony, and they have played that trick. It's over. Not unless they intend to cripple people with rate increases, which, by the way, because of spending, they probably will have to do. They didn't, because they live in their cubicles all the time, not the real world. They don't understand something like the summer gas price increase, that people are constantly using more energy in the summer, the gas driving periods, Memorial Day weekend and on. This hasn't even hit us yet. This has not even hit us yet. All right, so moving over to, people did too. That's the sad thing. People expected the CPI to ease off. And can we be honest, the CPI is not even real. It's not real. It is not real. It is not a real indicator of true inflation. They do the best they can do for a government that's trying to hide as much as they can. But people bought into the Putinflation and this general idea that Amy Walter is supposed to be giving you objective political analysis. They all bought into it, including many economists that we take forecasts from. The consensus range was 8.2 to 8.4. That's it, year over year for the month. The monthly, month over month forecast, low of 0.6 to a high of 0.8. The consensus for the monthly increase was 0.7. That's it. The consensus for the year over year was 8.2, which they said would be down from the 8.3 the month prior. Instead, what we got was another 40-year high, 8.6 year over year, and a full 1 point gain month over month. What did it? It wasn't used cars, Joe Biden. It was energy. And again, we haven't even seen the full blunt of this yet. Here it is. Here's the share from the 12-month. This makes me angry because it's so predictable. It's so predictable. The sooner this country realizes that most of these so-called experts, whether it's in politics, the economy, or healthcare, most of these so-called experts are out-of-touch political hacks who have been poisoned by ideology. There are plenty of things that the Congress and the president could do right now. The Democratic majority could do. By the way, the Republican minority could try to force them to do, but they don't, which is one. Well, I can't imagine why Michael Guest is a problem right now with our next guest. $40 billion in Ukraine. And Amy Walters telling you there's nothing that can be done. The root cause of inflation is too much currency in the supply, period. We don't have $40 billion to give to Ukraine. We didn't have $1 trillion to spend pumping Big Pharma up to make them ridiculously rich. We didn't have it. And for her to say there's nothing that neither the administration or the Congress can do is patently false. Monetary policy is not the only driver of inflation. Spending and fiscal policy is the ultimate cause of inflation. Monetary can just try to do their darndest to control it. To give them a hand, to give them some tools, to give them an environment that makes it easier for them. All items, less food and energy, by the way. Look at it, compared to all items. and this stupid senile moron goes on TV and talks about used automobiles, blames Vladimir Putin, even though this trend began way before Vladimir Putin, and I'm not even going to use the I word. Invasion is like going into, like, you know, for a Western Hemisphere country to like insert themselves into a Middle Eastern country or something. That's an invasion. All right, you know what? I want to do it early because I want to have plenty of time. Looks ready. Thumbs up. You ready, Mike? You ready? He looks ready to me. All right. Look, I want to bring on my next guest. I got to tell you, I was like so pleased to watch this happen on Tuesday. I really was. You know, Michael, welcome back to the show again. Welcome back. This is the second time on Inside the Numbers. When you were on the first time, something about you struck me, struck the audience. You were, you know, you just articulate, you know, and I don't know, you had a real, like, kind of a message there that I think people could get behind. And your opponent, your primary opponent, has like all the political stars aligning against them. But here's the problem: isn't that his fault, Michael Cassidy? Isn't that his fault that the political stars aligning against him? Nobody told him to vote for you know, nobody told him to cast the votes that he has to cast. Oh, don't tell me he glitched a little bit. Oh, there we go. Okay, can you hear me, right? I'm both glitched? We're both back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, everything was good. Sir. Yes, last Tuesday we had no institutional support. We had no big endorsements from anybody, but we had a message that was going to win. We had a message of America first, and we had a base of people who are just very fed up. They're very fed up with Washington, D.C. They're fed up with the politicians that we keep electing that aren't really conservative. And Michael Guest, my opponent, the current congressman, voting for things such as the January 6th Commission, voting for twice for over $53 billion of money to Ukraine when we've got the inflation crisis, when we have shortages here, when he's voted to give over $1 billion of federal funding to Planned Parenthood. And Mississippi's a very pro-life state, and he has ignored the wishes of his constituents, and they're ready for somebody else. And that's why I got the most votes. And that's why I'm confident that in the runoff, we're going to also have the most votes and move on to the general.
Yeah, they're going to, and I know, 'cause I've heard you, speak since Tuesday night. So I saw your war room the next day, as a matter of fact, too. They're going to throw the kitchen sink at you. They are,
Yeah.
I mean, that's now they're absolutely, because I don't know if you heard it before, but I was trying to explain to people the issue of trustworthiness with lawmakers. So, leadership, Republican leadership, is gathering votes. They're not trying to win elections and primaries. That's not really the goal. The goal is to win enough votes for Kevin McCarthy. And the goal is to keep their trustworthy lawmakers next to them in DC. That's the real goal, So at this point, they now see you. You're a threat. What's the plan from here on out? Because I got to tell you, you outperformed what I thought you were going to perform in some of the more populated areas of your district. So when I saw what was left, and I saw you had about a 3.5 point lead. I think it was parts of Lincoln, stuff like that came in, and Guest took a little bit of a lead, but you had just done so well in and around those areas that the remaining vote that came in put you back in the lead, which you didn't relinquish until then. What's the plan here? I mean, you can talk to what's the goal? Is this a ground operation here, Michael? What are you going to do?
Yeah, we are going
to don't give away your cards. You know what I mean? Don't give away your cards. But give me the general idea.
No, we're going to continue to turn out the same voters that came to the polls this past Tuesday. We're going to get them out again. We're also going to continue to spread the message about America First and about Mr. Guest's record, because even, unfortunately, a lot of people who went to the polls, people who are registered voters who may have normally gone to a primary election, they didn't know about me or Mr. Guest's record. So we're going to continue to get the message out about me, and that we've got somebody running against Guest. Hopefully more people know now than they did on June 7th. But I'm confident that if 100% of the voters who voted last Tuesday knew about me and our campaign, then we would have walked away with it. So I'm feeling good about the increased exposure that we've got by having another runoff. Of course, the other side to that is that the establishment is certainly, as you mentioned, they're going to go all out. They're going to go all out to support their candidate, who, he's just there as a not really a fighter for the America First movement, and we're going to have to combat that. The message remains the same. However, we just need more resources to get the message out. So that's why we're asking people to contribute whatever they can on votecassidy.com. We've got a donate tab on the website, and really everything's going to help for us to get mailers out, to get back on radio and TV, and to let the people of the district know that we've got another election coming up in 2.5 weeks.
Yeah, I want to point something out here because I think this kind of stuff matters. All right. On your Twitter, I was reading, prepping to speak with you today, and there have been a couple of candidates that have done this time. They're only America First candidates, and amazingly, but like you just said, you really have to get that out. There is no chance your opponent is going to match you on this. I have pledged to not take any money from any corporate PAC. I've also pledged, because by the way, they're coming in. The leadership PAC is coming in. I mean, I've also pledged to never trade stocks as a congressman, and would vote to ban representatives and spouses from trading stocks. Federal office holders should, high bar I know, be above suspicion of interest peddling. I'll tell you what, we have pulled this over and over again. People don't understand how congressmen or women, congressmen and women are allowed to even do that, Michael. They're just like, because of course they have control over the economy. They have, or at least they have such a huge chunk over who does and doesn't get a competitive advantage. They get briefings on situations. You had the good senator from North Carolina walk into a briefing on COVID, knew that the government was going to react the way they reacted, yet came out and pretended like everything was fine, sold all positions he needed to sell, bought a bunch that he needed to buy. And it's just, people are like, how could that be possible? Why is there not a law already on the books against that? And one time after 2010, Republicans attempted to, push this like non-insider trading law, but it was a sham. That law was a sham, and people are wondering how much of a priority should this be? What would be your top priorities if you're elected? Because whoever wins this runoff is going to be, and I'll show the viewers this. I mean, this is a conservative district. Whoever wins this runoff, you don't have to settle for a congressman because you think that one is more electable than the other. That is not the case. Besides, this is, both are very articulate people, so it's just not, it's not the case. C is conservative, L is liberal, M is moderate. That's the voter file. It is a very conservative district. So what would you focus on if you beat my guest in this runoff?
We're going to focus on, election integrity. That's one of the biggest problems that Republicans have with the 2020 election, how there are so many states that had discrepancies where there's illegal activity, where there's improper outside influence, and just uncertainty and poor electioneering. I'll give an example of what happened in my own primary a few days ago, that there were multiple precincts around the district. I was in the main county, the biggest population center, and in other precincts in that county, they counted up all the ballots right there as soon as the polls closed, and then they made a printout that then they would put up, on the window so everybody could see within, 10, 15 minutes or so. Very transparent. In the precinct that I was at, I asked them, hey, what are we going to do? Are you going to do a printout? And they said, no, we're going to put all the ballots in a box. We're going to send them down to central headquarters. And then from there, we'll let you know what the results are. Now, by no means am I accusing anybody of anything, but the fact is that they have a different standard, not just within the state or the district, but they have different standards within the own county of how to properly do conduct the elections. And that should be something that we have standardized, that way there's no doubt, there's no suspicion, because in the election results that we had as they came out initially, there was after 10, 11 p.m., it came out that there was a big batch of votes that dropped in this populous county that gave Mr. Guest a 51 to 45% lead over me with not that many votes left. And so it made it seem like he was going to win. But they messed up the data entry, and this lasted for about an hour. And then when they fixed it, we got a big number of votes, or they took votes away from him, and then we went back into the lead. And so all this can be fixed. It needs to be fixed. And we need to be strong about that. We need to have people in Congress that will fight to get back to paper ballots, get back to, or have voter ID, get rid of ballot drop boxes, and clean up the voter rolls. That's something that should be a nonpartisan thing. That's something I'm going to fight on. Other things we need to do, we need to make sure that we rein in all of this excess spending. We need to stop the Federal Reserve, or we need to put some kind of controls over the Federal Reserve, so that way they don't just keep printing money. And we need to gain control of the border and deport people that are in this country illegally.
I think I think the difference too here, because people are like, how did Cassidy do this? Right. I really think that you can't ride the fence. Right. And yeah. I have been, you can't ride the fence, man. I don't understand this, this strategy of like, it's not going negative to tell the truth about somebody or something else. Right. But that's what they'll say. Oh, they always do that. Well, he's only, he's running off a negative message, Well, if the country is in such bad shape that there's nothing else honestly to talk about at this point, then that's a failure of the ruling class. It's not our fault or your fault or this one's fault that we're talking about these issues and it sounds negative. It's you're just giving so many people a wealth of information. It's a treasure trove, to deal with. That's not the challenger's fault. That's not the insurgent's fault. That's the incumbent's problem. That's that they put themselves in this position. I gotta say too, that's what struck me about your race. So a little bit different is that, some people all have the right rhetoric, but you really have to make it a choice, between two options. It has to be. And I think the exposure that you got because of what happened here is a problem for the incumbent, because now people are like, why did this happen? And so many people probably just went and voted with the I, and next to the name, because they just figured, it's Mississippi. It can't, it's Mississippi 3. It can't be that somebody's that has that liberal of a voting record. I got to bring up this January 6th commission because he voted for this commission. And look at this sham yesterday. They opening statements riddled with lies. Just riddled with lies, Republican and Democrat. Liz Cheney, across the board. I think Tucker did a fantastic job last night going over it, because they're still pushing lies that have been debunked, all of these months later. Dead, police officers were killed by protesters. You name it. Donald Trump did not denounce violence. He encourages violence. You can hear it with your own two ears. This is just crazy. Where does he, at this point, what do you think he should come out and say or do to make what he did right? Anything he can do at this point. I'm serious. You could screw up and have a mea culpa.
It's funny. I try to give him a bit of advice to just say, hey, come out and apologize and let people know what. Just do that. But when it comes, it's too late at this point. He has repeatedly, even over a year later, he continues to defend his vote for the January 6th commission. He has done nothing he hasn't lifted a finger to help out the political prisoners that have been held in custody with their due process rights being taken away. He hasn't pushed back on this Democrat narrative at all. And it's really, it's troubling. And that's what is possibly the biggest issue when we go around and we talk to people in the district, that when they find out that he voted for the January 6th commission, which it says 19 times in that very short bill, 19 times that it was a domestic terror attack, that is not nonpartisan language. He likes to say it was supposed to be nonpartisan. Domestic terror attack is not nonpartisan. And he, again, he's just on the wrong side of this. And he's trying to, he's trying to own it, I guess. But the more that we talk about it, it's not good for him, because he's simply on the wrong side of the issue. If he wanted to be a representative of, let's say, San Francisco, then, maybe he'd be more appropriate there. But the Mississippi 3rd District does not like people who voted for the January 6th Commission, and that is our current congressman. That's why I got the most votes on Tuesday, and that's why I'm confident we're going to get the most votes in 2.5 weeks.
What do we do here about Ukraine? We're in this position where, I mean, again, it's this idea that nobody ever admits they're wrong. We're going to collapse their currency, Michael. We're going to collapse their currency. And I've been over these charts a million times with my audience. I mean, they don't need to see them anymore. There was a temporary disruption in the Russian ruble, and now he's in a stronger position than he was before. This concept that we were somehow going to stop this advance because they painted it as an advance on Kiev, as if they were trying to take Kiev. It looks right now like Mr. Putin's going to control the most productive and wealthy areas of Ukraine when this is over. I mean, that's it. I mean, he's going to have the shale deposits, the grain, the farming areas. Much of what people didn't understand is that the ethnic Russian populations on the eastern part of Ukraine that he felt was liberating. The West says it's an invasion. He calls it a liberation. This is like the western part of Ukraine is living off of the taxpayers of Western countries. And the eastern part of Ukraine actually has value. Look, I don't mean to say this the wrong way. It's just true. They have the natural resources. They have the industry. They have the value. So it's not like we want Mr. Putin to like have a stronger position here. But at the same time, nothing they did or said was true and worked and was true. And now here we are, $50 billion later, and our inflation is skyrocketing, not Russia's. It's just not working. So at this point, where do you think, where is the line for us? As far as, of course, we don't want, other superpowers to do well here. That's, or at least that's not even true. Certain superpowers. But at the same time, you can't put yourself at risk to help a country that really, we couldn't help anyway unless we went into a combat situation against Russia. I mean, this was always in kind of an inevitable result. So what do we do here now? Where do we pump the brakes here?
Well, we need to do what we should have done from the beginning, which is push for a peaceful resolution to this. And it's certainly it's tragic what is happening. I read something that Ukraine's losing over 200 soldiers a day. They're losing over 200 soldiers a day, and that's, again, that is not taking blame away from Russia at all. But the simple facts are that 200 Ukrainians are dying every day. They have millions of refugees. Their country is being destroyed, and we have been, the West, we have been feeding them all sorts of resources with this. We're grinding down the idea of grinding down Russia's army. Well, we're also grinding down the Ukrainian army. We're grinding down the Ukrainian people. We're grinding down our economy. We're grinding down the economy of Western and Central Europe. This is something that does not have winners for anybody. And we need to come to a peaceful resolution. The exact mechanics, we need to have good diplomats that have American interests at first as the people, as our guiding principle, that it's not simply Russia's bad and we need to make Putin suffer. That can't be the number one thing. The number one thing is what is best for the American people and the United States of America as a whole. And that has to be our guiding principle this entire time. And it hasn't been. It hasn't been for years in so many things. And that's why the people are so fed up with our current representation in DC. Guys like Mike Guest voted for $53 billion to give to Ukraine. And, if Biden has another $50 billion request tomorrow, I guarantee that Michael Guest would say, yep, let's do it again.
And honestly, it doesn't even, with all of the war propaganda, all of the beating of the drums, all of the anti-Russia stuff, not just over the last year, but forget about under Donald Trump. I mean, they primed a certain part of the American voting electorate. They primed them to hate Mr. Putin over this, right? Just period. And no matter what, he was the devil. He was the straw man. And even this year, because we're doing this basically annually, and we're asking people, who do you see as the biggest threat or the greatest enemy to the United States? And last year, it was more overwhelming, but it was overwhelmingly China, and it was overwhelmingly Democrats who said Russia, when most of the rest of the country said, of course, it's China. And this even after we didn't mean to do this. It just happened that this year's mark to ask the question fell during what was going on with Ukraine. So I know that the appetite is even falling even more now, but this is what we got. I want to put this up here and see if you agree with generally the large plurality of the American public. They still said China, and this is by party. And 60, more than 60, a little over 6 and 10 Republicans had said that, yes, it's China. Independents are almost just about, right there with Republicans, 44% versus 27.2 who said Russia. You can see Democrats way out in left field, Mike, all by themselves saying it's Russia. I mean, so, and there's a good amount of North Korea across the board, which I found interesting. We also found that last year. But since all of this propaganda has gone on, still, China actually, it was 42.2 to 22 last year. This year, it's 42.8. So it actually went up for a little bit to 31.6. That's what we're at. And in a month, if I was to ask that question, that would return to a much than what we last year when it wasn't all the drums beating. Do you generally agree with that? I mean, generally agree with the American public here about, if we are going to focus our time, attention, and resources, it should not be on this, this country. It should be on a larger threat to the East.
It's definitely China. China is by far our greatest geopolitical threat. That is something that our policymakers need to have clear eyes about. And we can't continue this charade of thinking that it's Russia. We need to, the more that we prolong this conflict, the conflict in Ukraine is prolonged, the more the more material that we give to Ukraine, the more that we push Russia over to China. And it's all about China in terms of long-term thinking. And it is, China has long-term thinking and American policymakers do not. We're just like a squirrel that sees, or a dog that sees a squirrel when it comes to the people up in Foggy Bottom at the State Department and on Capitol Hill. And they just see what's in the news and how do we react without taking a step back and thinking about the long-term interests of our country. And the long-term threat to our nation's interests is the rise of China. They've been building their Navy at a rate that far outstrips our own. I'm sure that they're not focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion policies in the Chinese military. I'm sure that they're not distracted by other sorts of leftist doctrines that everybody needs to adhere to, or else you get kicked out. That's something that's very ironic. Like we're having, to a degree, our own cultural revolution that the Chinese went through back in the 50s or 60s, and to a much less, admittedly, to a much lesser degree. But China seems much more focused on getting things, getting their own interests done in the best manner for them. Meanwhile, our country, we are focused on things that do not really matter.
I got to tell you, and that's why I think your race is so important, because a lot of people, this goes to, you just brought up the culture part of this. A lot of people in the West, they don't understand the thinking of people in the East, whether it's Russia or the Chinese, looking at us and this revolution we're going through. They want no part of this. They want no part of this wokeness. The Russian people, the Chinese people, they're not dying to basically culturally castrate masculinity in society. They want no part of it in the West, because we're going through this right now. We're losing the ability to see through the eyes of our enemies, and that's dangerous. And I just feel like this current generation of leaders, they've had their chance to rise to the occasion like prior generations of Americans have done. where, yeah, it's not like we're facing with unprecedented challenges. I think we got a lot of we have big problems, but they could be solved if this generation of leaders would do what others have done in the past, and they have not done that, Michael. That's the problem, and they have not done it, and they're not going to. There's no reason to believe that tomorrow they're going to come to their senses, which is why, we talk January 6th. Just admit you were wrong. Just admit it. They have no capacity to do it. And I totally believe with 100% you are correct. If Biden put forward another $50 billion package tomorrow for Ukraine, he's going to raise his hand. He's a yay. And that's it. I mean, it's just, there's no course correction here. It doesn't matter how many CPIs we get, which you did see that today, right? Inflation.
Yeah, 8.6. Yeah.
They believed it was going to back off. Everybody in that town believed that it was going to back off because of, the small, modest rate increases by the Fed. They don't live in the rest of the world. They don't live in the world with the rest of us, where people need more gas now. It's summer. The kids are home. People are going to, if they have it, they're going to try to travel and take some time. And that always happens. It's like they live in these cubicles. They live in these halls and chambers of power. And they are not at all in touch with what is going on. If they can't be in touch, then they have no incentive to change their minds, right? I mean, politicians react to two things: the threat of loss and political pressure. That's really it. That's it. And look, if this did not get Mr. Guest's attention, I don't what will? Nothing. He's more loyal to the rest of his colleagues than he is to the voters of Mississippi 3. I mean, that's where we're at. I'm going to give you like a minute. Tell people, if we've done a lot here, but covered a lot, but tell people, why, you think this next go around in this runoff, if they voted for Mr. Guest, why they should change that vote and vote for you.
Well, they probably didn't hear about his record about voting for the January 6th commission, voting to give over $1 billion to Planned Parenthood, and also giving over $53 billion to Ukraine. The big thing, though, is that it comes down to what the race comes down to is the status quo or somebody who's going to be a fighter. If you like the status quo, if you think that our nation's on a good path, then you probably are going to keep voting for Mr. Guest. If you think that we need somebody who actually has a backbone to stand up for our nation and its principles, then you're going to vote for me, Michael Cassidy. A perfect example of a lack of backbone by my opponent. He has refused to debate us. I got the most votes. I'm in the leader seat. But I want to debate him just like I'll debate my Democratic opponent before the general in November, because that's part of the responsibilities of being a leader. You need to show your ideas to the people so they can make the best choice. Mr. Guest has refused repeatedly to have any of his ideas, even before a friendly audience, before a neutral moderator, to do this. And it is something that when the people see that, when they see they can sense who's going to fight for them and who won't, I'm confident that I'll get their vote on June 28th.
I'm glad you reminded me about that. I meant to ask you about that debate challenge. I saw that, and I don't know how you can ignore it at this point. If you ignore it, you look like you're just hiding. That never works. It doesn't always happen. On the right is typically more willing to get out there and debate, but not the establishment right. They'll try to just dodge it for at least as long as they can. So I hope he takes that up, because the voters deserve that. Voters deserve that. Like you said, it's part of the responsibility of a leader. Mm-hmm. That's a major problem we have today, Mr. Cassidy. That is a major problem. They don't understand the burden of leadership, or what they think this is like a game or something. They're living in they really do. It's a game with no consequences, with none. And that's got to change. I wish you all the best. I hope you come back and keep us updated. I really do.
All right, thanks, Rich.
Tell people where they can find you. Tell people where they can find you. Again, one more time.
Yeah, my website's votecassidy.com, and then we're also on Twitter at votecassidy, and Michael Cassidy for Congress on Facebook.
Again, thanks for joining us. Come back whenever you want.
And then
all right.
There was somebody who wanted to say thank you for coming to they must have seen
somebody. Hold on, wait. A viewer wants to thank you. Apparently, you showed up.
It'd be from Getter.
It'd be from Getter. Apparently, you showed up to something, and they went. I don't know what it is, but they saw you there, and they want to thank you. Look, it's amazing how people just want to see their leaders Is it just amazing? And they're so
Yeah.
appreciative when somebody just shows up to talk to them.
Yeah.
That's a sad commentary of our representative government, Mr. Cassidy. It really is, but good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you. All right. Well, all the best. Come back soon, will you?
All right. Thank you. We'll do.
All right. Take it easy. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Michael Cassidy, Mississippi's 3rd Congressional District. If you're there, like he said, go check that out. But if you're not, I'm telling you, the establishment is going to throw the sink at Mr. Cassidy. So he will need all the help that he can get. All right. All right. We're going to take a real short break. When we come back, we'll have our buddy Don Smith from the Don Smith Show, as always, to do our Q&A on Friday. There's a lot going on there. And he'll also tell us what he's got coming up for the show this weekend, noon Eastern Standard Time. Don't miss it. I'll be on as well. There is something that I wanted to bring up, and I'm not sure. There was one more thing, but when we come back, we'll have plenty of time to do it. All right. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget, give it a thumbs up. If you like the video, subscribe. That'll and of course, hit the notification bell. That'll let you know when we're going to go live on Getter. If you guys are on Getter, you can follow me there at the Twitter killer at People's Pundit on Getter. Still on Twitter as well at People's_Pundit. But we implore everybody to go and sign up for Rumble. All right. People's Pundit Rumble channel. And while you're there, the best way to follow what we do and to get access to, embargoed polling, exclusive stuff is to sign up at peoplespundit.local.com. For those of you of my locals community, all right, if you haven't yet checked out the book club, you should. It's Sundays, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. All right. And we have discussed, maybe Sunday's a little bit difficult, but we did ask a lot of people what they thought the best day would be, and Sunday was it. So if you can, it's later in the day after you come back from church or whatever it is that you do. We're doing Myths of Empire right now with Jack Snyder. You don't need the book to join the book club. All right, you don't. I read it loud, we take turns, and then we talk about the discussions, so you could follow along even without it. All right. It has been really cool. And by the way, I'll put up the recording for those on locals. I'll put up the recording for that today. So you can see before, in case you missed last week, then you can see the book club that we did last Sunday. And instead, get prepared for the next day. Because we went over, just so people know, we went over the 3 systems of government in chapter 3 theories of overexpansion. And then 3 systems of government. You have the realistic explanation, the cognitive explanation, and then you have the explanation that he is arguing parts of, which is about the systems of government, the internal politics of a government. Are they a cartelized system? Are they a democratic system? Are they a unitary system? What makes these, in each system, what makes countries, nations, the politics of them susceptible to believing in myths of empire that ultimately cause regional whatever powers to overexpand? And of course, that's folly. It means you have overreached, and you are now reached a point of expending more than it is worth, and you're draining your relative power. You're on decline. You will decline because of it. All right. So, with that in mind, don't forget, check it out. You don't need the book to join. And even if you do decide to buy the book, I would try to look for it locally. Amazon actually did say they got other copies. When we first started, it wasn't a book that everybody was like dying to buy at this point. It was written in the early 90s. So there was about a 2-week wait. But I do understand now from people who bought it recently that they're getting it sooner. All right. So if you can get it locally, you probably get it faster locally at like a Barnes & Nobles or a Books A Million. But you can still get it on Amazon. And now it's coming. But yeah, definitely I would strongly recommend you guys check it out, because during this period with Ukraine and the Russians, the myths of empire that you have been told by the media, by leaders on both sides of the aisle, including like our last guest's opponent, Mr. Guest, they're myths, they're bogus, they're lies even at this point, because there becomes a point where some political leaders will believe in their own myths, but others, in most times, will just understand that they're not telling the truth, so they have to continuously myth make to make that truth work. And that actually is what you're seeing with Ukraine right now. And So it is. I don't think we could have picked a better book during this period to read than good old Jack Snyder, Myths of Empire, which I applaud him, by the way, for trying as a realist, because he technically is a realist, trying to expand on outside of typical realist theory, which is that, the nation states are rational actors and they make decisions based in, the realization that they are living in an international state of anarchy. There is no global 911, et cetera, et cetera. All right. So there we are. All right. Okay. We're going to be back in let's take a real quick break. When we come back, we'll have my good friend Don Smith in our Q&A. You're watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit, and stay tuned. 2 minutes and 46 seconds. We'll be back.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be. I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
We can get on a plane and take a one-way ride. Steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to disappear for a night. Just to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Well, I did just notice, that True Social was trending, so I knew Donald Trump had said something. So I wanted to go and look and see what it was. He did comment about the January 6th hearing, but he wrote this on True Social. Just out, really bad CPI, 8.6, worst numbers since December 1981. Employment numbers should be 6 million lower than employment numbers 6 million lower than it should be. I told you so. Should never have happened. Look, if he's going to stick to that argument, that would be a better argument for him. I do think, of course, voters care about election integrity. But if you need a little bit more of that, a lot less Georgia. All right, let me put it that way. Look, so let me bring on my buddy Don Smith here. We got plenty of time if I bring him on now. We're always running over. Don, as always, thank you for joining the show, my friend.
Thanks for having me.
Everybody, there it is right there on Locals, DonSmithShow.locals.com. Check them out on Rumble as well, on the Don Smith Show on Rumble. All right. Don, I got to bring up some of the stuff on Tuesday here. Definitely one race in particular, very disappointing, but got out certain voters while they threw like $3 million at him in the last 9 days or so, or combined 3.7 or something. I just read one of the other campaign guys had sent me something. It was an enormous amount of money that they threw at old white people to get their incumbents elected or their preferred candidates elected. Meanwhile, ignored the gains made in minority precincts, which they would absolutely need to win. It's tragic, but at the same time, too, I feel like, when you and I, we've talked about this, I feel like some of these people are losing their way about what's important and what's not, and some of this stuff. I look, if he sticks to that kind of a message, that's one thing, because he does have something that no other Republican candidate in 2024 is going to have: the "I told you so" argument. Mm-hmm. Look, Mike Dittmer is going to run away with it this year because he had the "I told you so" argument. Mm-hmm. I told you so. And now voters after you get that, it doesn't matter what the establishment throws at you, because people at that point, they're not going to be fooled again. That's the kind of message you should rally behind. I can't look down, fall him though, I can't, criticize him for just defending himself on this January 6th thing. We just had Michael Cassidy on. I don't know, something just told me that this was going to happen. Like, I got off, I remember that episode with Laura, and I got off and I said, that's different. Cassidy's different, because he's going directly at what I think people were mad about in the Republican electorate. Plus, because it's Mississippi 3 and it's more conservative, you can do that there. So you know what I mean? But he doesn't harp on the past, which is different. You can't do that. So if you understand what I'm saying, right? So what do you think about this January 6th hearing you saw? Yeah, that was, charade yesterday. Shame on these people, man. Shame on them. And the thing is, some town hall just said, hey, can we see your polling on the January 6th and also on the most important issues? Nobody gives a damn. Nobody gives a damn. It's wrapped up into another category, which barely gets 3% of other. And when you just look at the word cloud of them, the mentions of January 6th is like 1.1%. I just looked at it because I got that media question. So what do you think, man?
The whole thing's a joke, and I think that's what the American people think. You're either on one side of this or you're on the other side of it. I mean, that's long been determined, and I will say the same goes for the election in 2020, right? So those things are rear view mirror stuff, and they're doing themselves a great disservice. And I'm talking about the left right now. This is a joke. Who's watching this thing? I'm waiting to see what the numbers were. What were the numbers? I can't imagine they were any good. But this does not make them look good at all. But we knew they were going to do this. As things get worse in America for the American people, they've got to go back to Orange Man bad. They have nothing else. So what you're saying about Donald Trump going forward, absolutely right. There's you want to talk about low-hanging fruit. I mean, people talk about low-hanging fruit. Usually it's one or two things, and then you get into the tougher stuff. Everything is low-hanging fruit. I mean, just look around. Go to the gas station. Everybody is living this. They're living this nightmare. And so those are the things to point out. Donald Trump, he talked about gas. What was going to happen to gas? He was exactly right. He talked about the supply chain stuff. He talked about all of this stuff, and he was exactly right. So I told you so is the message for everybody going forward. But you're right. The Trump effect is different from candidate to candidate. Depends on what kind of a demographic you're running your race in, and all those things are important to keep in mind. But the election, people should keep looking. 2,000 mules, all these kind of things. Keep looking into this stuff. That's perfectly fine. If you're a candidate, do not run in the 2020 election. Everybody's in their court. Everybody's where they need to be on that. They've made up their minds. There is so much low-hanging fruit out there. Just start grabbing it. Start grabbing it and putting it in a big bushel and show it to everyone, because they know it. They know it's true.
Yeah, I got to say, too, that you really nailed it right there. The major problem, the Democrats think this is somehow going to improve their fortunes. This is looking backward. And I don't mean Americans are progressive in the sense of the word that the left wants you to think. I mean they're forward thinking. They don't like to look backward, which is why incumbent presidents, by the way, have such a built-in advantage as long as that incumbent is doing a decent job. We all know Without COVID, it would have been a different story. I don't think anybody here seriously disagrees with that. The fact is that you got to just let the enemy do that and screw up. If you start doing it yourself, then what the hell is the point? You know what I mean? Which, by the way, I got this question. We'll get to Wisconsin in a bit. But I do want to ask Don about some of the news du jour. Somebody also asked us about Illinois. It's Bailey all day. Listen to Steve Cortez. It's Bailey all day. The other guy, one guy's a total fraud, and the other one is trying to buy off downstate voters. It's that simple in Illinois. I can answer that question in 2 seconds. It's Bailey, period. No questions asked. And by the way, they threw that crap at him last time. He went on up winning areas, that nobody thought they would. So in any event, what do you make of this? This goes towards Trump's "I told you so" argument. And we had been saying, we were just on the show last week telling people, if you think, and remember, I brought up Amy Walters' column on Cook Political Report about Democrats and their ability to improve their situation. And she basically regurgitated like a hack, totally regurgitated the Biden administration's inflation talking points. You remember that? We talked about this on the show. And she said basically, A, there's nothing Biden and the Democrats can do. That's a lie. And then B, that, nobody really thinks inflation's going to keep rising anyway. Yeah, nobody in your freaking world does. In the rest of our world, it's the driving season. Nobody else is seeing prices flatline. Where they're continuing to go up. And now gas, which is driving the CPI, of course, we just hit a new record last week. What the hell is she talking about? I mean, Don, what do you, where did we see? There's like almost, would you agree? There's almost no end in sight to this inflation problem.
Yeah.
What the hell is she talking about?
I don't know. But this is exactly what I'm talking about. This is the low-hanging fruit that they don't want people talking about. That's why we've got people trying to kill Justice Kavanaugh. That's why we've got this Roe v. Wade thing going on. That's why the J6 thing is on prime time, put together by a big network executive who does documentaries. This is so obvious. These are the things that we need to point out, is how obvious how much these people are out of touch and how obvious it is to the American people. That's really the message going forward. Explain, because people get it, right? I don't care who you are. I don't care. You voted for Joe Biden. You were the first one in line to vote for him. Good for you. You're paying that at the pump too. You're also, and you're hearing these people talk about, well, just get an electric car. You know what nobody's talking about? Kevin McCarthy, get in front of a microphone right now and ask what the people that live in the projects, in the poorer sections of any major city in America, what are they going to do? They live in a big apartment building. They're going to drive an electric car. A lot of these people, there's maybe no parking lot. Where's the charging station going to be for them? On the street? We're going to put them on the street. We're going to have them on attach them to trees. They always like to use the line, everything that Republicans do disproportionately impacts minority communities. What do you think's disproportionately impacting minority communities today? And of course, by that they mean poor, which is really a disgusting way to describe them anyway, but that's what they do. Point that out. Get to a microphone and say, who do you think this is impacting more? You think it might be the minority communities when it comes to inflation, when it comes to high gas prices, instead of these leftists sitting up there mocking you because you don't have an electric car. I just drive right by the gas stations. Yeah, until you need to charge your vehicle. Oh, is that my time to stop?
No, that's I kind of have
it like a game show format
messaging.
Today.
Like I shut my phone off, but they're connected to all my Macs, and I get a text, and it's like it goes off. I'm just trying to mute everything, and I missed the damn laptop at the last second. People, we'll get into Mississippi 4 as well. I just didn't want to step on Mike Cassidy's time with that. I think again though, but it's really what Don is saying too. The electorate does matter with some of these arguments. What may work in one doesn't work in the other. I will say this, though. Palazzo's in deep crap because he got a paltry 31.6% of the vote, the incumbent. So if you put all of the outsider vote support together, he's going to get thrashed. I mean, this is it. Look, though, I will tell you guys this. You have to remember, and Don knows what I'm talking about. They saw some of these other candidates coming. That's why they threw over $3 million at Greg Rath to help young Kim. They saw David coming. That's why they threw $2 million at David, or $1 million in the last week, to bury him with independent expenditures. They never saw these guys coming. Now they see them coming. So when I tell you, if you don't like Michael Guest and you don't like Stephen Palazzio, you better go help these other guys, because they're going to need it. I'm telling you. And I know it's a tough time for everybody, but these people have no shame. I mean, what they did to Rats at the end, he did make a dumb comment about they say it's an anti-Semitic comment, but he did make a stupid comment about, you just stay away from the finance stuff and, those, because they're always going to try to twist you up with that. That was a mistake, and he paid the price for it. But they still knew they had to throw $3 million at him, so they knew it. These guys snuck under the radar. Look, when I asked Decision Desk for Mississippi 3, I was like, can I have the granular stuff? They're like, why? Nobody saw it. And I got the next day, they were like, what? He did. It's like, you should have seen The Office. They were all like, what? He wrote it out like, and he was like, good call on that. What the hell? I said, it was just because it was conservative and the guy was given an alternative argue. He's like, really making it. Plus the other ingredient is that they didn't see him coming. And sometimes you need to, to stay away from trying to validate yourself. You know what I'm saying? I don't know how to explain what some candidates do. They don't want people to think they're losing, so they want to validate themselves. But when you do that, you set the alarm bells off to the enemy, and the enemy then makes a move and works behind you. It's much better to just stay quiet and just shut up. Do your thing on the ground, do your thing, but don't engage with them. Just engage with the voters about them, but shut up and don't let anyone know that you're coming. California 22, Connie Conway is much more popular than Devin Nunes was. The truth is, Devin Nunes, which by the way, about to change over here, because he never was conservative. That's the truth of it. He wasn't a conservative guy. He wasn't incredibly popular, not without the entirety of the electorate. And Phil Arbaio almost beat him in a pretty Republican district. Connie Conway is a very popular woman. She was out of politics for a while. I remember Connie from many years ago when I never was even involved in California. She just was very likable, very shrewd, very straightforward. She was a popular person with Republican voters, and the affinity there for her was remained. So it didn't surprise me at all she did that well at all. She dispatched her primary challengers pretty easily. Why? Because this is a good way to dovetail into Wisconsin. Why? Well, she did get that endorsement. I'm not sure that, she would have won anyway. But she had a record. Right?
Yeah.
That brings us to Wisconsin. If Rebecca Clayfish does not win, all right, let's just say let's pretend she doesn't have a 35-point poll lead right now. Let's say she doesn't, let's just, whatever. I told you I'm over some of this crap, man, really over it. Let's pretend she doesn't have a 30 to 40-point lead right now, and she doesn't win the nomination. This is the question. How likely is it that the Wisconsin Republican Party would advance her agenda? School choice, taxes, election reform? How likely do you think that would be, Don?
Well, yeah, the message that she has, the platform that she has, that is the message, right? That's what has to be put forward. So this is one of those ones where you look at it and you just say, you kind of have to scratch your head a little bit, because it's one thing to have the Democrats, the leftists, come in and take things over and try to mess things up. This is one of those situations where for some reason we're doing it ourselves. I still don't know why. Actually, in full disclosure, I had a meeting with her team this week just to talk a little bit about that, because I don't understand it. And I think maybe they don't understand it either. It's a head scratcher, right? What's going on here? Why would you do this? What's happening right now is it's weakening her ability to raise funds. It's taken away available resources that she has. In the meantime, Tony Evers is racking it up. He just raised $10 million
right.
in the last quarter. So it's hurting her ability to compete in the general. As you said, 35-point lead. Come on, what's the deal here? So don't know totally what's going on behind closed doors. There's always a story. There's always things that everybody isn't privy to the information. Somebody has it, and somebody knows what's going on. I don't know what that is, but yeah, of course they're going to have to.
What do you think? You think if she wasn't the nominee though, and let's say the eventual nominee wins, do you think here's where no, I don't, because this is the difference between why I was bringing up Connie Conway and she was the way she was, because Connie has a record. Rebecca has a record. Why? To me, it's like, I know, to answer your question, Nathan, I know Rebecca's going to do what she says she's going to do, because Rebecca has been in this position before. And guess what? Rebecca did what she said she was going to do. Rebecca was facing threats of all kinds. They were, for folks who don't remember what happened to her and Scott Walker, I mean, it was one attack after the other, one protest with urine being thrown all over the place after another. They had the pressure that it really, everything the left can come to bring to bear on you. And yet she marched on. So the only way I can answer that question, Nathan, is I know she will do it. I don't know about anybody else, because I don't know what they're going to do under that kind of pressure. I know what Rebecca's going to do. Right, Don?
Well,
I mean,
yeah. So if it's a question of conviction, yeah, Rebecca will follow through on the things that she says she's going to follow through on. But what I'm saying is, her platform, though, what else are you going to run on? You're going to go against school choice. You're going to go again. I mean, all the things that she's looking at, election integrity, all these issues are the issues that the voters want. If you're voting Republican, if you're voting for something different than what you've been experiencing in Wisconsin. So is she more likely to follow through on the agenda? Yeah, absolutely. The platform, and she's proven it. As you said, she's got a record on doing that. But everybody else, even if she were not to be the nominee, what are they going to run on a different platform? Like I said, you're not going to change those issues. So how likely are they to follow through? It's a coin toss, right? It's that thing we always talk about, conviction. And in this case, we're adding into it track record, right? You're running on your record. Here's the things that I've done. I've proven that I will do these things and fight for them. So yeah, she's got that one. She's the only one that's got that. So it really is a mystery what the others would do. They would try to run on those things, I guess, I
would go so far as to say that the state of Wisconsin is now competitive at the presidential level because of Scott Walker and Rebecca Clayfish. I would go that far. I would take it that far. I would think that it would still be a D+6 presidential state without those two individuals, because of a few reasons. One, the union right to work is huge. I was talking to Sean Trendy about this. What people don't seem to understand about the impacts of right to work is that you really did severely injure the union's ability to not only organize but to strong arm members and force them into it. It's really force them into behaving politically the way you want them to behave. Two, they, even before mass mail-in voting, which now created another issue that we need to address. Before, it wasn't the same kind of challenge and issue, and they took that on, even though they felt the full wrath of the left when they did it. And on and on. And I think too, when you are representing your party, and I know, I remember I polled it, a ton of Obama voters who were like, no, I'm going with the Walker Clayfish ticket, because I may not even agree with Scott Walker on certain things, but he earned my respect, because I know where he stands. He's always going to do what he says he's going to do. Scott Walker is going to look you in the eye and he's going to tell you, no, I don't agree with you on that, but I'll tell you, I'll be looking out for your best interests here. This is where we agree. And so many people respected that even though they would vote for Barack Obama twice, and did, they still voted for Scott Walker. And they were they were the standard bearers for the party in that state. So they helped to change that image from like a Paul Ryan Republican to Scott Walker and Rebecca Clayfish. And then ultimately, by the way, Donald Trump, who cared about the jobs and the plight of the working class. I really would go that far. I'm telling you, I would. But that's to answer full again Nathan's question is, all I can tell you, Nathan, is I know what would happen if she was the governor. I can't. Nobody can tell you what would happen if anyone else is, because they've never been in her position. And believe me, that pressure comes to bear. And sadly, more people buckle than don't. That's why the country's in such a terrible position. Has Cassidy gotten the Trump endorsement yet? No. Honestly, I'm going to watch step here a little bit, but the endorsement of Kevin McCarthy is like a proxy endorsement of McCarthy's team. So it actually made it harder for people like Mike Cassidy, and harder for people who had the support of the leadership committee. It made their lives a lot easier, because it's like an endorsement of some of those other candidates by proxy. It is, whether you stay out of it or not. So go ahead, Don.
Well, no, yeah, I agree with that. I actually wanted to say something real quick, if I could, about
Yeah, go ahead, go back if you need to. Yeah,
the whole Wisconsin thing. If people, we talk about like double standards in the media, we talk about media bias and all those kind of things. There is no single greater example of the media. This was the first time in my life that I saw the media all in. I mean, where they all were on the same page and they all worked together to push this agenda. The whole thing had nothing to do with busting unions. It had nothing to do with even private sector unions. This was about public sector unions, which are paid by the taxpayers and having to contribute to their own health care. The reason that was because there was a law passed in the 1950s in Wisconsin that said you can't put the taxpayers on the hook for 100% of anybody's health care coverage, which is the public sector unions. That's what this was about. You know how many people don't know that? And you don't know it because the media told you it was about all these other things. He's trying to bust the unions. He's trying to do this. So to your point about conviction, this was an attempt to bully these people, and I'm talking Scott Walker, Rebecca Clayfish, to bully them to shut up, pull this thing and call it a day and walk away. They were upholding a law in the state of Wisconsin.
End of story.
Mm-hmm. End of story. Yeah, I just wanted to point
and
that out.
That is the job of the executive branch, to enforce the law, to sign legislative passed in law and to enforce them.
Yep.
And they were having a meltdown over the governor and his administration doing his job.
Yep.
Think about that. Yep. And by the way, that's the same thing with immigration. It's like we do need new immigration laws, especially to deal with the chain. But the fact of the matter is, we just need people to enforce them and to stop incentivizing these mass, invasions. I mean, that's what they are. There is no other word. It's literally an invasion. What's the impact of Griffin's money on the race? Well, I'll tell you right now. I know an internal poll I saw, and I know 2 now public polls. And right now, Griffin's money is just not cutting it. Why? I think what happened for Bailey is that some good people got behind him pretty early, and he's been able to make, and he's working hard. He's been able to make the case that, don't be fooled by Griffin's money. And that's why it's so important for everybody to be on the same page when it comes to these things. Like Don said, you sow confusion into it, and people, the voters who are just trying to live their lives, they don't really know. You can't expect them to hatch it out at the last minute. It's your job as a campaign to make sure they know, which is why money matters. So to handicap a candidate's ability now to raise money, especially if they wind up pulling it off anyway for the nomination, is just very detrimental to their ability to win the race overall. I mean, just extremely detrimental. What do you think about this from Rumble? If Kevin McCarthy becomes speaker, I don't think Republicans will hold power long, even though the Dems are tyrannical elitists. I don't either.
Yep.
I think you're right, JP.
And even the power they have for that period of time will be greatly diminished.
Yep.
It's one thing to have power. It's one thing to do something with it, right? I mean,
exercise it. Yeah.
We had 8 years of Barack Obama. For the first 2, he controlled everything. Obamacare passed with 0 Republican votes. They had gun laws that they were floating around there. They had the Dianne Feinstein thing that Harry Reid refused to even bring to a vote because he didn't want to. But it's one thing to have power. They had ultimate power for 2 years, the first 2 years. And fortunately for all of us, he did very little with that power. So it's one thing to have power, but it's another to use it, right? And we always talk about that. That's why we need strong leadership. Real leadership is doing something. This guy's not going to do anything. It'll be a joke. So,
I mean, I can tell people personal stories right now. I know this to be true. Before Meadows left the Congress, when Jim Jordan was there, you had some warriors who were trying to find out what happened with Russia, down the line. It wasn't just Russia. It was a lot of them. They would go to Kevin, who was the door man for Paul Ryan, and they wanted subpoenas. And Kevin would basically say that's not going to happen, and that's it. And Paul Ryan would shut it down. So I mean, they had like Don was just saying, Barack Obama had power for 2 years. So did the Republican Party, and they did nothing with it. And Kevin McCarthy is a big reason they did nothing with that power. And if you're fooled by a statement, then believe me, you're being fooled, because he won't do anything. I'll tell you what he'll do. He'll make sure everybody who gave the NRCC money gets something out of it. That's what Kevin McCarthy's going to do, folks. Look, the last time that ilk ran the majority, they literally threw away the healthcare issue for Republicans who had been winning it for the first time ever for a decade and squandered it. Squandered it. Now, when will the next time the American voter tell a pollster like me that they trust Republicans more than Democrats on healthcare? When will that be? And that's pretty important, considering it's usually always a top 3 issue. It is the reason why they lost the majority, not Donald Trump. They lost the majority because of healthcare. Period. End of story.
What's going to happen is you're going to have a lot of conservatives, a lot of Republicans. You're going to have people get out there and vote. They're going to get out there. They're going to go, yes, we took back the House. Yeah, we took back the Senate. Then nothing happens. This is going to be part 2, a rerun of the whole repeal and replace thing. If you just put us in there, we're going to repeal and replace. You put them in there and they go, well, we don't have a plan. It's going to be the same thing, right? So it creates kind of a hopelessness, right? Like my vote, big deal. I can go vote and I can put all these guys in here and then they don't do anything. So
look at California.
Look at California.
That's their dream. That's their dream. That's their model for the nation. Look, I have never seen defeatism in my life like that state. Never seen it in my life. Voters just don't care. Well, what's the point? What's the point? Well, that and that's sad, folks, because that's a sign of a dying democratic system of government. When people have given up on
the turnout was terrible. The turnout was terrible. Moved on.
It was absolutely abysmal. And when people give up like that, it's almost over. It's almost over. The curtain is coming down. I hate to be that negative, but let me just tell you, you just can't let that state become the model for the rest of the country. If it does, look at my state. Look at Pennsylvania. Look at from Florida to North Carolina to Pennsylvania. I guarantee you Florida will be good. I guarantee you. Look at North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Ohio, even Georgia. Look at Georgia, right? Immense turnout. And that was a big fart. That's all that was. It was pathetic. Let's see what else we got here. This is a great question. We got through a bunch real quick. Can you ask Don and Riss for their thoughts on the demilitarization of the West, given that Belgium, Greece, Poland, and the U.S. have said their stockpiles are depleted? The DoD just said their Javelin stockpiles are donezo. Donezo. Yeah, I think this is something that Don and I actually have been speaking about for a long time, which is that, and it goes to why it's so foolish to push Russia into the arms of China, because you're creating a coalition to balance against you that you have no prayer to balance to be back to even meet with similar power. You can't, because all of our allies are weak. They're pathetically weak. The ones that do have the potential, they have what's called latent power, don't even have militaries. Don't even have military. Japan, an incredible warrior culture filled with economic power, latent power, and the ability to put it into motion. Nothing. They basically rely on us to wipe their you-know-whats. Same thing with Germany, is banned from militarization because of post-World War II order. So what? And Britain is a bunch of pansies. I mean, let's get real. What the hell are we going to do against a coalition like Russia and China? Nothing. We're going to get our asses kicked. That's what we're going to do.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
well,
yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts on this? I mean,
So,
I'm trying to make it as simple as possible, bro.
So I first got to just say this: the demilitarization of Germany because of the rules after World War II. Let's not forget that's kind of what started World War II. It was after World War I they demilitarized. You can't have a military, and they had to get rid of all this stuff, and it just created a situation for Hitler to come in and create a whole new military with state-of-the-art equipment. So anyway, so yeah, take that for what it's worth. But we've gotten so stupid about how we handle this stuff. We spend a lot of money on national defense, on our military. That money, just because that money is earmarked to go towards the military, doesn't mean it ends up going to the military. Everybody's got to understand that money, a lot of that money gets redirected. It gets, we're going to have to take it from here to go do this to help out these guys. So a lot of that money ends up to funding the Black Lives Matter people, the Vote Blue, all these different organizations you hear about all the time. So we've got to get smarter about how that money is spent. We've got to get smarter about modernizing, because that is the real thing that's going on in other countries. But at the end of the day, and I hate to say this, I mean, you and I both served, and we're maybe a little extra passionate about this. We've got to quit destroying from within. What the hell is all this woke stuff? CRT? These guys don't get, we don't, they can learn CRT in preschool now. They can learn it in the job force. They can learn it all kinds of other places. We don't need to do this in our military. We don't need to have people in the military that aren't willing to do the things that need to be done once you get in the military, which is exactly what we're encouraging right now. We're destroying ourselves from within. It almost, at this point, almost has little to do with the weaponry. It's the morale. There's a reason that we're the greatest. It's a culture thing, absolutely, and we're destroying from within.
And I got to tell you, Mark Milley. I mean, here's a great example. Mark Milley's worried about the origins of white rage. You should be worried about the origins of getting your ass kicked by China. That's his job. And I brought this up. Michael Cassidy had brought up the naval buildup by the Chinese. Meanwhile, I mean, look at them. The Taiwan. Mark my words. That's next. Taiwan's next. And we will have no way to do anything about it. That's we're at this point right now. The power of America was projected by the U.S. naval aircraft carrier fleet. That's how power is projected. And the Chinese are going to exceed us there. I mean, if they haven't already, let's be real. If they have not already. So our ability to project power is second rate compared to what the Chinese will soon have. And even the Russians were developing things on the low that while we have been degrading. I mean, that's just a fact. Trump came in, he did do a build-up, that's great, but they squander this stuff unnecessarily. Like he brought up on locals, the Javelin stockpiles. Well, where did they go? They went to oligarchs in Ukraine. And if you think that they're being used, solely for the purpose of beating back the Russian assault, then you live in a fantasy world. Those people are going to sell them on the black market and get millions of dollars for them. Like, that's not what happens with these countries. Todd Wood was on Tucker, our old buddy Todd Wood, and he was on Tucker, and he just nailed it. And he was like, Tucker, I got to tell you, there's nothing to do with the Ukrainian people. They are just ruled because they did. He praised them for helping escape when it all went down because he was there. But he said, but the fact of the matter is the country is ruled by cartel-like criminal organizations. And you can bet 40 billion, 55 billion, whatever it is, gets skimmed off the top. The arms you send to them, which the American public did not support lethal aid being sent to Ukraine, the arms you send them are going to end up enriching, people. They're not going to end up in the use of defending their country, or some, of course, some will, Don, but you know how this stuff works. Yeah. Maria Yovanovitch, the poor little impeachment damsel in distress. Mm-hmm. She knew every arms dealer in the region. Mm-hmm. Every arms dealer, one phone call, and she had those javelins, I have no doubt, distributed to all the bad guys in the area. Probably took a kicker for it too. But this is a major, it's not just us. And like Don said, this is what people don't understand. I brought this up with Cassidy as well. we don't understand the mentality of the East. They want nothing to do with this woke crap. And I honestly was looking up because it was reminding me, Don, of the founders, how they felt about England. And it was like, now there was all these other things going on, but there was especially one conversation that Adams had been having. And he basically said that it's more than two. It's more than just their system of government and everything and our right. It's more than that. They're a virus. He called it, that the British man was becoming effeminate and not masculine anymore. And that it just wasn't that, but it was like all of the things that make society strong. We took that with us to these new colonies, and we left behind a bunch of overly civilized, so that's why Americans used to be proud when the Europeans would call them barbarians. Franklin mocked them with the hat. He was mocking them, folks. He was mocking them. Yes, I'm barbaric and I'm uncivilized, and that's why I'm strong and you are weak. That's what they were doing. And he said, at this point, we really need to think about how much the weakness of British society can infect us. And they did, and they took it very seriously. It wasn't a joke to them. That's the way the East views the West now. They view us as weak and, basically, like I said, culturally castrated. And they don't want that crap in their society. And actually the Chinese, they look at the Japanese and they're like, look what happened to Japan because of the influence of the West. Where's the shogun? What the hell happened? God, we cannot let that happen to us. And Putin and his very, very loyal supporters, because that's another myth of empire, that Putin's unpopular. He is not. They don't want that crap. Why do you think he's riding horseback with his shirt off? Everybody makes fun of it all the time. They don't think it's funny. They're like, yeah, man, that's our guy. Look at Barack Obama, who can't even lift 2-pound weights.
Mm-hmm.
That's serious.
Stairs. Yeah.
Yeah. And now we got somebody who can't walk up a flight of stairs. He trips going up the stairs. And people, I think this is, and then like the weapons problem, Don, is just like a symptom of the cultural problem. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's just like, it's going to naturally follow that we allow what's important to degrade over time and really focus all of our attention on things that are not important. And Don, I don't know about you, but when I was in the military, yeah, of course it was a very testosterone driven, environment, and it was unforgiving. So what? So what?
It's the military.
It's the military. I just don't understand what the hell they think. Are we supposed to I don't know, at like 2000 hours, it's now appreciate the drag movement time. Mm-hmm. Everybody line up and put on rainbow. What the hell are we doing here? Yeah. Alexander the Great was bisexual. The love of his life was Hephaestion, his right-hand man. I mean, really, but he was married and he was still masculine. It didn't matter. The things that we are making important are not at all important. You know what I'm saying? And the Spartans used to look at the Athenians like they were a little bit,
I think
what I mean?
I was talking about the military, how we're this is from the inside, right? To me, it's more about even the personnel at this point than it is the weaponry. Weaponry is important, but it's the personnel, it's the people. We fought because we loved this country. That's what made us the greatest fighting force. Was our love for this country, our passion for this country, real love, not just, oh yeah, I love my country. People loved this country. They loved the freedom. I think it was 1963. Don't quote me, but this was read actually in Congress into the record, the 45 goals for communism. This was read by one of our Congress people, American. Part of that is hate America. If you can get people to, or at least to just love it less, right? They'll be less effective fighters. They'll be less willing to fight in the first place, which was really the ultimate goal. But I mean, it includes all these things. It includes the make homosexuality a normal thing, do it in schools, take over the schools. Almost every one of those 45, if you go down them, it's attack capitalism, make people hate rich people. If you read down almost all 45 of them, you can put a check mark by almost every single one of them. This was 1963, I believe, in the floor of our Congress. They read this in. Who's the bad guy? Do you ever hear about that? No, you don't. What do you hear about? The McCarthy hearings. The McCarthy hearings. That guy was crazy. That guy. Actually, he wasn't. It turns out he was actually telling the truth. But they demonized him. They targeted him. They isolated him, and all the other Republicans stepped back and went, yeah, I don't know about that. I'm not with that guy." And so it's all from within. It's all internal. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions, like seriously, there's like 10 questions that are just focusing on the general theme, and it goes from January 6th to the impact on the Hispanic vote now from some of these things to support for Ukraine, but generally the sense that Republicans could really throw water on the fire, that they are building up here. And is it possible that they weaken their takeover of the House by the way they are? I got to tell you, I mean, already, Don, I got to tell you, the National Republican Congressional Committee, Sam Spencer, right, one of the main guys there, had just said a couple of months ago that David Valadao was the ideal Republican for them in the state of California. David Valadao is looking like he's going to lose. So this is what they think is the ideal Republican. Somebody who votes to impeach Donald Trump, even though Kevin McCarthy somehow convinced Donald Trump to back off of him. I don't know why. Well, I know why Kevin did it. What I don't understand is why Donald Trump agreed to it. All right. But it didn't matter anyway. The fact is, Kevin McCarthy he's in a district that's not at all like where his colleagues are. And when you have no margin for error, when you do things like this that piss off your base, I'm looking at Valadao. Mike Garcia is a stronger candidate. He's a better candidate. So I don't know about him yet. Although I got to tell you, I mean, the turnout was so bad that when you look toward November, they think, Don, that it's going to be better for them in November. They're so stupid. No, it's not. It'll be worse. More Democrats will vote in a general election. Primary elections are more Republican typically, especially in a Republican year, but they're going to vote in a general, of course, or at least more of them will. And in David's race, it's a Hispanic district, yet the midterm electorate was majority white by a long shot. And that's definitely came into that equation there and threw him off. Those people will vote in November. They're just not going to vote for the old white guy. It's not going to happen. So what I'm saying is there's a lot. January 6th, Ukraine, the way who they're supporting and where. Yeah, I'm thinking this is going to be like an average incumbent midterm. You can't lose to at least 2 seats incumbents in a state like California and hope to have like this 100 seat wave. Like this is looking like you have Joe Biden at the lowest approval of any first term incumbent midterm at this time. You have consumer confidence lower than anytime. You have consumer sentiment since the malaise, right? Right track, wrong track, all suggesting an excessive landslide wave. I mean, if you look at just those predictive indicators, yet when you look at the map and you look at the specifics about each race, it's hard to find more than 35. That's the truth, because you can't win some areas. Somebody brought up Minnesota. You can't win some of those areas, Don, if you're voting for $55 billion for Ukraine. People will stick with the Democrat. It's that simple. They will stick with the Democrat. And, I'll get more specific, Nick, about your Hispanic vote question. I'll follow up with that, but I just want to get Don's overall feeling about their ability to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory, or not even defeat, but really even just blunt the wave that they could have.
Yeah, and we saw an indicator of that, like you just talked about with the primary, right? Primaries typically a little bit more of a Republican advantage when it comes to that turnout. 2 different campaigns you have to run. You have to run a primary campaign, and that primary campaign is really just about getting the voters out. You've got to vote. Here's why it's important to vote. There's no presidential thing going on. There's not the excitement and the pomp and circumstance that there normally is. You've got to tell people you've got to get people to vote. You got to encourage them, explain to them that, okay, we need every single vote, but you've got to give them a reason why too. You can't just say go vote, because people will be like, well, why? Why the hell would I vote for you? You've got to give them that reason. You've got to attach emotion to it, and that's a tactic. That's one of the things. Obviously, we all know that the left is a lot better at that than the right is, but you've got to find a way to do that, and it should be really easy. This is super low-hanging fruit. It's not even hanging anymore. It's on the ground. I mean, but you've got to run these kind of. They better be paying attention to this, like you said. That is the important thing. You've got to get these people to show up and to vote. That's just all there is to it.
And they all pile on Doug Mastriano in Pennsylvania. They all pile on him in Pennsylvania. They, buttress, we talked about Wisconsin, but Tony's going to have a lot of money. He's going to have a lot of money. And believe me, they still have a lot in place to get those. Their data is better too. All right. Republicans' data is garbage. They spent all this money on their permanent data operation. It's trash. Believe me, folks, I work with the same vendors every day. And I'm telling you, the Republican Party is using the inferior vendors compared to the left. They'll make sure their voters in Milwaukee get to the polls. So whoever's the nominee, Rebecca Clayfish, whatever, it's going to have to be able to raise that money. She could have soared to a 40-point base. So there you have two different states where two factions of the Republican Party are like fighting and hurting each other's ability to win the general. It's not organized, and this is something that we want to put up, because there's another side of this. But this is the media handicap for you. The left is winning everywhere. The left is beating their establishment everywhere. And there's not this huge, internal fight. They're fighting at the ballot box and the left is winning. And then that's it. There's no you know what I mean? There's no, they're all still doing what is necessary to fight the Republican in November. They don't do what we do, which is try to move against our former, you know what I mean? Like the Club for Growth. I lost in Ohio. So now I'm going to go spend all this money against Dr. Oz in Pennsylvania. Oh, boo-hoo. You know what I mean? Boo-hoo, you little babies. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And Nancy Pelosi's not counting votes. That's what Kevin McCarthy's doing. He's not trying to win elections. He's trying to count votes. And he's trying to make sure whoever comes out of these primaries will vote for him. It's just, there's a lot of things going on underneath the surface. And we touched on a bunch of different people's. The impact this will have on the Hispanic vote is huge. Just to get to Nick's question specifically about this more in general, because he was talking about in Arizona, what's the difference between Hispanics in Arizona, Texas, and Florida? How's this going to impact Masters versus, even somebody like a Ron DeSantis in Florida? Florida Republicans haven't been doing this to each other for years. They have just not been doing this to each other. They are, there was the Putnam versus DeSantis fight, but then DeSantis won, they move on, and that's everybody kind of they're not like the national party in Florida. And by the way, to some extent, Texas used to not be like them either, but now they're getting more like them. As they get bluer. I think Georgia, already you can see it. So you were just talking about commies in Tinseltown. So that's a great idea to open the door to Georgia to all the commies that come from Tinseltown and build your own little commie Tinseltown. They're stupid, Don. These are dumb people, right? And, I think maybe we can flip this state back. So the first thing I'm going to do as governor is open up all of our commerce to the defense industry. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to bring in all these liberals from the defense industry to build a permanent foothold in some section of my state. I think that's a great idea. Maybe I'll let them build an Apple plant in the heart of the liberal county of another battleground state. What a fantastic idea. They're long-term stupid, Don. They're long-term stupid. But is this a critical group for Masters to appeal to? Yes. But here's the deal.
Everybody.
I think Masters is going to be able to compete with a group that McSally couldn't do. Trump was stomping Biden among this group in Arizona, while McSally was splitting them in 2020. And there was this group of people. Sometimes they're independent, but sometimes they'll say they're moderate, they're conservative, they have no college degree, and they're between the ages of 30 and 55. And when I tell you stomping, Trump had like a 30-point lead with this group, and Martha McSally was splitting them with Kelly. I think Masters can compete with this group. I do. He's just got that, like, unlike some we were talking about culture before, they like that abrasiveness. They like the direct masculinity. It's like they want that. They don't really care if you're a moderate and squishy. They don't like that at all. In fact, you know what I mean? And part about like Kelly being an astronaut and stuff like that, they were kind of like thought that was cool. They don't think like we think, folks. I mean, there's just groups. You got to try to put yourself in other voters' shoes. Sometimes see how the world, how they see it. And somebody like a Donald Trump, they're like, "Dude, this guy's awesome." You know, and I think McMasters, they'd probably like him too. But you know, Blake Masters, we'll see. And actually, we're going to pull that race soon for people who are curious. We are going to pull that along with the governor's race. But what do you think the you know, Florida Hispanics came? Yes, Arizona Hispanics also followed the trend. They did, and I was kind of hoping to see there would be some of that trend in California. I don't think that's going to happen now, because it's just you can't give people more of the same. You just can't. Donald Trump did not give Arizona Hispanics more of the same, and that's why his problem was with the white second-generation educated voter. His problem was not with the Hispanic voter. They actually kept moving toward Donald Trump in Arizona. What do you think, Don? I mean, part of it is just where they come from, right? And then, and I think the other, because you have Florida, where are they coming from? And then the other part is outreach. Like the shift in South Texas started to remind me, the outreach from the Texas Republican Party started to remind me a lot like we did it in Florida. You welcome them with open arms. You explain what your values are and why you are the part, not them. They'll give you a snap card. I'm going to give you a future.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing here is, okay, so you hear people use the term, "I didn't leave the party left me." That's what's going on with the Hispanic voters today. I believe that's really what's going on. If you look at the right now, I think what most people want is they want genuineness and they want conviction, right? So I maybe don't agree with every single thing you say, but I know that you mean it. When you say you're going to do this, you're going to do it. So, okay, I can live with that. Okay, at least you're honest with me. That's what they want, genuineness, and speak directly. Don't do the political speak, all those kind of things. The left right now is you have to agree with every single thing they say. Right? You've got to agree with every single position they have, even though that position may change the next day, the next event that happens, the next tragedy that happens, the next natural disaster that happens. So you've got to be flexible, but you've always got to be on board with everything. If you want to drive away Hispanic voters, that's how you do it, because they don't like
Preach
that.
It, brother. Laura,
they don't like
I
that.
could hear preach it. And by the way, on the other side of the door, when Cassidy was talking about stuff like that, I could hear the clapping. Yeah, man, that's it. Because and then you're going to chase them away again. You're going to Bush 2.0 them again, and then I'll tell you what, man, you don't get that many more do-overs with voters. You don't get that. You know, you have your chance, you take it, you seize it, and you solidify that realignment, or you blow it. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you what, 10 years from now, ladies and gentlemen, Hispanics will not be 11% of the vote. Mm-hmm. They will not be 11% of the vote. They don't even flex their muscles yet. Now, to this day, they could have came out Tuesday and blew every GOP candidate out of the water. Some of those incumbents are like praying to God they did not. But guess what? They will be in November. So win them or lose. That's where you're at. You know, and in those states specifically, everyone's got their own thing going on. You have a lot of, like Don said, in Texas specifically, the party left me, I think, is what's going on in South Texas. Plus, there's a better outreach. In Florida, we did just a better job. When they got there, we explained to them that wasn't their party. And yes, we won more over time, but we did a better job, like right as they got there. These people you're fleeing from, that's them over there, the white version. That's point two. That's the white elite version of what you just fled from. Okay. You know, because Florida Republicans are tougher. We're just a tougher breed, man. We have no problem explaining a third rail issue, you know, and no problem tackling the other issues where rhinos just get squishy. The environment. You ask any Hispanic voter in South Florida who is better for the environment, they're gonna tell you Republicans are better. They're gonna know Democrats run cities, and look at them. Republicans are outdoorsy people, and they know what the environment really means. It doesn't mean climate change. It means preserving Twin Lakes, right? It means doing something about red tide. It means making sure the beaches aren't eroding. It means that this is what it means. It does not mean you're dead in 12 years if you don't give up your gas. And it's like and you have like these McTurtle and McFarty. They just don't know how to explain this to the nation in general. They're too busy anyway. They're too busy anyway, stuffing their pockets.
I've got to the point where I don't think it's that they don't know how to explain it. They're just they're just unwilling to, or they don't really believe it. They don't really believe what a lot of conservatives in this country believe. They're anti against us. That's why they're putting up candidates against good America First candidates and all. I don't think it's that they don't. At this point, I have to say, it's not that they don't know how. It's they're unwilling to, for whatever reason that is.
Did you hear about, I don't know enough about this to answer Derek's question. Maybe you do, but I will tell you anyway, he wasn't going to be the Trump candidate anyway. But apparently the American Gestapo, otherwise known as the Federal Bureau of Investigation, has taken out Ryan Kelly. That happened. Would you know it? Yeah, I don't know enough about it to answer the question, but I'll tell you this anyway, Derek. Tudor Dixon's going to be Trump's guy. I'm telling you that's going to happen. All right, so just get ready. Or Trump's guy. Sorry, Trump's backing. All right, but what do you think? Or at least that's the way it looks now.
Okay, just think about this. I talked about how people can see through this, right? So you see what's going on, that this whole thing is a massive propaganda campaign. I'm talking about the prime time hearings on here. So they announced that yesterday morning. What a coincidence. Well, geez, I better tune in now because they raided his home on the morning of the day that they're going to have the big
over January 6th.
Over January 6th, right? This thing is so scripted and so obviously scripted that I think they really hurt themselves. I think they always go too far. I've always said that. They never apologize. They always double down, and then they always go too far. This is the going too far.
And they keep talking about this breach, okay? But I'm not going to say who it was because I don't want the damn guy arrested. But I just talked to somebody yesterday right there when they opened those doors. Have you visited Capitol Info? How many of you could be this duped? You can't breach the building from the outside. That they have to open them up. They are magnetic doors. And I specifically asked him just last night, and he was like, Rich, they opened the first round of doors. Like, come on. It was, and they escorted the first groups in there. Yeah, I mean, this is like obviously something was. I'm like on the top train with this. These got people up, dude. It's that simple. I mean, this guy is not a liar. He's not a fanatic. I've known him for years. And again, I'm not going to say it because I don't want him to get in trouble. At this point, the Gestapo could show up at his house, rip his little daughter out of his arms, for crying out loud. That's geez. Yeah, so that's where it is. Next door, almost next door, over the lake in Minnesota. We haven't done any polling in this race. Somebody has been polling. And, basically, I think Don would agree with there's no chance of a Republican carrying the state of Minnesota in 2024 if Waltz and Ellison are in office.
Yep.
The governor's races are huge. Who controls the state when it comes to vote counting? If you don't think that matters, if you don't think the votes come out differently when some party controls the state over the other in governor's race, then you don't know anything about American politics. I'm very, very sorry to be the first one to tell you that yes, the party in power controls the vote. Yes, the vote will be different. If you were to run a time travel exercise and you were to count the votes in Florida under Governor Gillum, Trump probably would have won it because he won Florida so big, but it wouldn't have been 3.5 points. Let's say it would have been 2.1. Okay. I'm serious. For people who don't know this, in a state like Wisconsin, why it's so important that, Republicans get their acts together there. If Rebecca is the governor, then you're not going to see what you saw in 2020. If that doesn't happen and they don't unseat him, Tony, then you're going to have the problems that you had in 2020. Now, I don't think it's going to be as bad because I think you get one of those. I agree with Boyle on that. I remember him saying that on your show. You get one of those done. All right. But it does absolutely matter. If Rick Scott wasn't the governor in 2018, he was slow to move, but he did move at the end. Then Rick Scott probably would not be senator right now. People are like, well, what do you mean by that? I mean, some things are allowed and some things are not allowed. And it depends who the governor is, the party is. And sadly for the Republican Party, Don, not every Republican governor is as good, like as Ron DeSantis, for instance. Right. You're not getting that off under me. I may have people undercover watching you count, like because there was a fear. For those who don't know, who weren't in Florida, don't know, there was absolutely a fear by Democrats that if they pulled something in Florida, there was like a large scale sting operation underway. Like I know a lot of Democrats who believe that, from Alachua to Broward, and they were like, "Damn, this guy's gonna burn us, man, if he finds anything wrong." Meanwhile, under Barack Obama, for instance, that didn't really matter that much to them. And what we saw a lot of was like anyone white in Alachua anyone white and male between the age of like 30 and 55, their signature was challenged. And they had to fill like a provisional ballot. They play games. So if you walked in with a Mitt Romney shirt, you were denied and turned around, told to go back home. If you walked in with an Obama shirt, that's okay. You're just a student from UF. Things like that. I mean, this is what goes on, sadly, but it's true. What happened in the Georgia? Don and I have talked about this before, Gary, a lot in Georgia. First of all, the incumbency is on the ballot. So there were a lot of new voters who never voted in a primary before, and they voted for the incumbent. If you notice the polling we did, David Perdue was right where David Perdue was in our polling. And so was, what's her name? The woman. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting her name, and I don't mean to do this in bad, but the fact is she was right where she was. It looked like Kemp got basically, which is weird to me, don't get me wrong, all of the undecided vote. But Don, 60% of the voters we polled told us they had no idea who Donald Trump endorsed. No idea.
Yeah, you got to get out there. You got to work it. You got to work it.
Do we have to continue any more than that?
Nope.
I mean, that's right. And also the Trump endorsement has more power regionally. You get the Trump endorsement in Ohio, you're golden. You get it in Florida, you're golden. Yeah. You get it in North Carolina. Yes, Ted Budd. Though his biggest problem was that people didn't know, and Pat McCrory was a really popular former governor, popular among Republicans. People didn't know. Once Budd got that message across, it was over. I want to ask you this. We're running a little bit late, but I want to ask you this one. It's a good one. I tried to wrap a lot of you guys up, but in the multiple questions. But the fact that so many people who have been in Congress for so long are oblivious to what is going on throughout the country, right? Look, inflation today. And he pointed out somebody like Debbie Stabenow. Do you get pre-French Revolution vibes? I do, Jay. And I got to be honest with you. That's why I want to read this question. Jay, I think you're on to something here. What do you think, Don? Because I feel like you can't avoid these things forever. I do feel a guillotine coming. Yeah, I'm telling you.
Every day there's another let them eat the cake, right? It's just it's nonstop. These people are so out of touch. And again, I'm going to go back to, I don't think it's so much that they're oblivious to it. I think they know it. It just doesn't impact them, right? It just doesn't impact them. And they've decided that their strategy, this is almost on both sides. They've decided their strategy is better to just not talk about it, right? Or just to poo-poo it and it's not that big a deal. You got Biden on national TV here this week on a comedy show, late night show, and he's talking about how this is we got the greatest economy in the world. This is fantastic. Continues to use historic. The only thing historic about him is I've never seen a president trip up the stairs That's historic, I guess. I've never seen anything like Afghanistan bungled, and just so incredibly bad. That was the worst military operation in the history of our country. So that's historic. But this is what he's going to continue to do. You've got these people going on, going, "This is great. You guys don't know what you're talking about." So totally in line with what all happened in France with the French Revolution. Yeah, I see the guillotines coming.
There are things that take empire down, brother. And that's, unaffordable housing, the ability to not have a home. Energy for sure, the lack of a middle class, a lack of faith and trust in how leaders are selected and governed, which is just generally called regime credibility in international relations, over expansion, good old Jack Schneider. We have it all right now. We have it all.
The three ingredients are exactly what the left pushes every single day. And that's anger. You've just got to get madder. If you just get madder, Brett Kavanaugh won't be on the Supreme Court bench. They knew he was going to be on the bench. There was no hope for that. But they needed people to get angry. They need them fearful. They almost got him
assassinated the other day.
Yep. Absolutely.
Do you people understand, for those who don't know what happened, we almost had an assassination of a Supreme Court justice the other day. Mm-hmm. And by the way, this is the illogical train of thought. It was the abortion part too, for sure, but the guns. So you think guns need to be outlawed, so you were going to use one to kill a Supreme Court justice. This is how demented this, and it is cowardice of Republicans. Everybody knows we have a mental health problem, a mass mental health problem in this country. You and I spent 20 minutes talking about it last week on the show. This is the problem. It is nothing to do with firearms. You're going to deprive. So, you can go to war and get your face blown off, but now you can't buy a rifle. I mean, Don, none of this makes sense anymore. These leaders are like, I do get the French Revolution feel, and I'm not the only one. It's next month on the Public Polling Project. It's annually. We have those a few annual questions. It's the Civil War likelihood term. So, by the way, Public Polling Project, if you want to support it, Big Data Poll / Public Polling Project. Contribute, share far and wide. Don't forget to put your comment on what you'd like to see us ask. Squeaky wheel gets the oil. The more we hear, the more likely it'll end up on a questionnaire. But this upcoming month, we're going to ask about a likelihood for a civil war. And not only that, but, this last year, the percentage of people who said that they don't see a political resolution and don't care, they would rather bang out, it's higher than the estimates for the American Revolution, who supported the American Revolution. It's terrifying. Terrifying.
Just to finish up. So anger, fear, but you got to have hopelessness.
Hopelessness.
If you can add hopelessness into your anger, you're already jacked up, you're afraid, and now it's hopeless. That's how you get somebody getting out of a cab in front of Brett Kavanaugh's house.
Yeah. That's how long until California as a state can be competitive again? A long time. Because, I put it on Twitter the other day because a columnist for San Francisco Chronicle was lamenting that they no longer have a working class in the city, and that's what's keeping their establishment there, because they usually have to rely on the working class vote to, use to overcome the establishment Democratic support. The truth is they ran them out. They don't have them because they ran them out. They did vote for them once upon a time when they thought they were progressive, and then they crushed them. So we put up the map to show you where they fled. California, it's more than just a Hispanic vote in California. That is different, which they just blew a major opportunity to do something over there. But it's more than that. There is no middle in California as far as the socioeconomic spectrum. You have places like the Central Valley, where 3 of the 5 poorest counties are located now in 1 congressional district. And then you have a bunch of educated people who are on the other side of the spectrum. And they're both, liberal demographics. So the only way to win them would be to win areas, would be to completely change the lower income the voting behavior of lower income Hispanics, and the Republican Party is doing everything in their power right now to not do that. So in California, because who votes for Kevin is more important than that. That's the truth, guys. That's the truth. The hard truth. They're not going to do it without some significant outreach because of some other trend around the country. California is its own animal, which brings up, Tony, in the rest parts of the country, I have seen this happen. Dems are buying up Hispanic radio stations to try and stop the trend. They bought 18 recently. I did read about that as well. The thing is, there are laws where you have to give people equal time, right, Don? You know this. So it's not like you can buy a radio station and deny the Republican Party the right to buy airtime. So the only way you can do it is if you're a candidate and you buy up all that airtime first, and then you screw your challenger, which is a good move to make, ladies and gentlemen out there who are listening. And if you don't, you may find yourself down looking for pieces of airtime to make up. Don and I are laughing at an inside joke right now because it happens. But yeah, buying them up, you can slant the coverage, but you can't stop the advertising airtime. And I'm not sure, Don, in many areas of the country right now, if they were to do that, I think they'd hurt listening. They'd hurt ratings, right?
Yeah.
If they went full like Air America on them, what do you think would happen?
Well, yeah, and there's another aspect too here with California, and that is, so you look at, we've also watched the mass exodus, right? The people moving moving all over the country, a lot of them to Texas. Who's most likely to move out of California for political reasons, economic reasons, or it's going to be the conservative voters? So a lot of people have been fearful, going, man, don't come here in California, my Texas, right? You see things like that all the time. But if you just think about it, the more likely people that are going to leave are going to be the conservative ones that go, okay, that's it. I've had it. This is insane. I got to get my family out of here. So I think there's a little bit of that goes into that, which makes California less competitive, right? I mean, there's less opportunity to appeal to the kind of people you're trying to appeal to. So I think we're seeing a little bit of that. I think Roe v. Wade is going to have a huge impact on California, because I think you're going to see people moving to California, right? Because you're going to be able to go through the drive-through there, and it's going to be like, instead of you want fries with that, you want an abortion with that. I mean, they're going to have drive-throughs, for Christ's sakes. I mean, I don't know how far they're going to go with this thing, but yeah. I think that's going to really change a lot of demographics. If everything we're hearing about the opinion comes true, because some states are going to, they're going to put heavy restrictions on them. And some states are going to be like, anything goes, come here, come to California.
Yeah. Getting some repeat questions. Haven't polled the Minnesota governor's race, but I do think, and I have long thought, that Minnesota was a state that Republicans could win. I just don't think they could do it with the Republican Party that Republicans are today. By the way, embrace St. Louis County Republicans. What the hell are you doing? What the hell? You have to flip that county if you want to win that state. It's the last part of the Iron Range that Trump didn't push over the edge. And they just ignore this stuff. It's like they can't read a map. I don't know. It's very frustrating. But they're stupid. And I'll end this with Richards. As it stands currently, what's the percentage chance of changing Republican leadership? Is it even possible? Right now, it's not. And Donald Trump, that endorsement was bad. Bad. I don't know. There's no way to I understand. I was quiet and I just watched people's reactions. The explainaways were missing the point, completely missing the point. You hurt insurgent candidates. You hurt them, and you are making it impossible to deprive him of the votes needed. And if you think he's going to be any better than Paul Ryan, you're sadly mistaken. Sadly mistaken. I don't even know what to say to that. I can't believe I'm even having to make that statement. It's amazing to me.
If Donald Trump wants to run for president in 2024, all indications are that he wants to run for president again, right? He wants to be back in the White House. He more than anybody needs strong leadership. He more than anybody needs a change in leadership, needs new leaders. When he gives out his endorsement, I mean, I think everybody understands this, so I'm probably being Captain Obvious here, but I think when he gives that endorsement out, that means you're on his team. right? He's counting on you. He's endorsing you. He's expecting your support in 2024 and back into the White House and all that stuff. If he thinks for a minute that Kevin McCarthy is going to, we don't have enough evidence of this yet. Mitch McConnell, if he thinks Mitch McConnell's going to be in, sit around the table with him, you think McCarthy's going to, I don't know what he's thinking. I don't know what he's thinking. He's bringing in another candidate into Wisconsin to run against somebody who would be supportive of him, who would, I don't know. This is, it's a head scratcher for me, like I said, about the Clayfish thing. But it really hurts the opportunity to change that leadership. You already hear all these guys, and they're all, even Jim Jordan. Oh my God, seriously. Jim Jordan even is like, oh yeah, well, when Kevin McCarthy's the leader again. Yeah, when Kevin McCarthy's the leader, let me finish the sentence for you. Nothing changes. Nothing changes. We're going to keep. Who knows the definition of insanity?
And Jim should know that more than anybody, because Jim is among those who walked into those offices and asked for subpoenas and did not get them. So he should know that better than anybody. So my question is, what happened? What happened?
It's always a story.
What happened? There's always a story. Always. And I got to be honest with you, I'm over them. I'm over the stories. I am, Don. I'm over them. At this point, we don't have time for everybody's little personal feelings and games and back scratching. And in case you haven't freaking noticed, your fellow American is suffering. You think you can win the presidency without Wisconsin?
That's what Donald Trump needs to go back
without
to.
Pennsylvania?
That's what Donald Trump needs to go back to. I hear you. I'm here. I'm for the people. I connect with you.
I am your voice.
Your guy.
Not they stole my votes. Okay. I mean, man, that's it. Look, sometimes it is what it is. It is what it is. But yeah,
upside down
I can't
world.
believe we had a waste.
I agree with Laura.
Upside down world. Laura's right. Upside down. So what do you got going on this Saturday, my friend?
We got a couple of things going on. So we got, sat down with former Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker. Great interview with him. Looking forward to playing that one. But great interview. He's leading. He's the president now of Young America's Foundation, doing some great work. They're all over the country now. So they're, kind of Turning Point USA. We're getting some of those conservative voices, and giving people who do have conservative thoughts as a student, giving them a chance to feel comfortable, right? That there's other people around. We all know what's going on in the education system. And we also obviously talked about his time working with Rebecca Clayfish. How does he feel about that race, and where is his support going? So really great interview with former Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker. Oliver North. Sat down with Oliver North on Monday as well, and a great interview with him. I haven't heard much from him in a while, and so we talked about a lot of different things, and great interview. So I think everybody will enjoy that as well. We've got the guys from Special Operations Speak. So if you're a regular watcher of the show, you know about our Vets in the Fight sit rep we do every week. We've got the voice of that, Mr. David Miller, and also the co-founder of Special Operations Speaks, Ken Benway. And they're defining what Vets in the Fight really means. So if you've heard the segment every week and all that, and you're wondering, well, what's this all about? And I haven't explained it good enough. These guys are here to do it. Of course, we've got the best pollster in the country. No, we couldn't get Frank Luntz. I'm sorry. No,
somebody brought him up before.
I know, I saw that. That's why I thought about it. So I'm using my lunch shtick. I love it. Anyway, no, we got obviously Rich be here with the latest on the polling, and we'll talk a little bit more, I think, about some of these issues and the importance of what's going on with the Trump effect and all these different kind of things. Peter Hussey with the latest on national security. We were talking earlier. Talking about the military and the weaponry and all these kind of things and how far behind we're getting on all that. Peter is about as knowledgeable on that stuff as anybody I know. So that's the stuff we talk about every week on that segment. So great show. DonSmithShow.locals.com every Saturday, noon Eastern time. I hope you guys will check it out and enjoy the show.
I'm looking forward to it, my friend. And as always, thanks for hanging out. It's
Absolutely.
Already over. Way over, as always. Give Brenda my best. Tell her I'm sorry. I hold you always well beyond 2 o'clock. All right.
Oh, don't let him lie. He steals your time all the time. He just loves you, Don.
Well, I love him too, and we love you guys too, Laura.
Aw, thanks.
You and the kids.
Love you too,
so.
Brenda. I know you can hear me.
Take that, Laura.
Whatever,
know?
Richie. Guess what? They both like me more. They just afraid to say it.
Everybody likes you more.
Now
No
it's
big
out
deal.
there.
It's out there.
It's out there.
Such is life. You guys,
Yeah.
Richie, you're just gonna have to come to acceptance.
I
And
deal with it.
there's a 10-step program. And it starts off with rule number 1, Laura's always right.
Laura's always right.
And
Speaking of which,
but he's got to get out of denial to believe that.
Yeah,
know
that's
that, right?
true. Yeah, you gotta get through the first stage. And it's denial.
speaking of which, give me speaking of which, Laura, because we may just have to deal without her, but give me a buzz after the show because I meant to call you on that. You know what, man, I needed a break this week, and I told I did, and I told Laura at some point, it's just all moving by so quick. My kids are getting older so fast. I never stop, and I'm just like, all of a sudden, I'm just like, I need a little time, So I did just kick my feet up, from a little bit from like Wednesday. And yes, I mean, I never stop, but I needed to do that. But yeah, give me a buzz because this is going to be an important summer. And we'll talk about it after, but I'm here if you want to give me a buzz.
You kicked your feet up on Wednesday? When?
Well, I didn't mean it figuratively. I did. Tell me I didn't take it easier.
That man worked.
I mean, I meant it figuratively, but tell me I didn't take it easier. I tried. That's my version of taking it easy. It's just, I don't have to totally stop. I don't have to totally stop. But I needed a breather. I did. I'm like, yeah, I gotta focus on myself. I'm like, I'm gonna go home and like cut the lawn or something. Seriously, it's how I deal. And because you do it too. Barbecuing.
Yes.
And
time to fire up the smoker.
Pictures of it. I meant to take pictures of it. I made a killer brisket, man. I thought I screwed it up too. And I was like, damn it. I got all mad, I did taste it and I was like, ooh, that's pretty good. But then I really didn't eat it until the next day. And Nico was like, oh my God, this brisket's amazing. And I'm like, whatever, you're just being nice. Then the next day I'm like, yeah, because I don't know, it happens with these smoke. Why you do the other one, but they always they get old. And when they get old, they start to warp, and I can't maintain the temperature. It's too low. But that resulted in a very low and slow smoke of the brisket.
When I perfected perfected my baby back ribs, it was accidental. I screwed up, and I was like,
"It's accidental."
No. Oh no! And then I was like, "Oh yeah." I make them that way every time now.
Yeah, I gotta make Laura some because that's her favorite. The baby back, smoked baby backs are her favorite. And I honestly, I can't always find the rack of regular ribs that I want because I like the St. Louis cut. I don't like the Kansas City. I like St. Louis, And sometimes, especially during the Biden shortages, I'm having a hard time finding like a good St. Louis cut. Even the brisket I didn't really like that much. I didn't like the cut of it. I had 3 to pick from. That's it. Whole damn store. He's like, I got 3 briskets. I'm like, let's go, Brandon. Gee, man. All right. With that in mind, my friend, I'll let you go. I'll talk to you soon. All right.
All right. Sounds good.
See you tomorrow.
See you, everybody. Thanks.
Noon Eastern Standard Time, folks. DonSmithShow.locals.com and also Don Smith Show on Rumble tomorrow, noon Eastern Standard Time. Scott Walker. Don's gonna have Scott Walker. He's gonna have myself. Special Operations Speaks. Don't forget to check it out. I can't wait to see the interview with Scott Walker. He's always a good one. Don's known Scott Walker for a while. They always have fantastic interviews. Walker though, he's like that. He's just a good interview. He's a good, and Don is like the best interviewer ever. So to have a good interview with Don is always something that's worth seeing, worth taking time to watch. The Brandon brisket over at Justice. The Brandon brisket, tiny. All right. But I made it work. All right. Listen, I'm going to kick rocks here. Everyone have a safe and healthy weekend. Enjoy yourself if you can. On Sunday, don't forget locals, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Book Club, People's Pundit Book Club, Jack Snyder, Miss of Empire. If you're watching on Getter, don't forget to follow me at People's Pundit, the Twitter killer. All right. Also on Twitter, still at peoples_pundit. But of course, the best way to follow me is on peoplespundit.locals.com. If you are watching on YouTube and you like the video, appreciate a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell. That'll let you know when we're going to go live. But we would very much like if you all moved on over to YouTube, to Rumble from YouTube, and subscribe to the Rumbles channel, People's Pundit Rumbles channel. Merchandise in the thing. Don't forget to get it. And nice, cool shirts for summer, nice and airy. And send your pictures over to us through the locals thing, and we'd love to put together a little collage. Last but not least, it is already June 10th. Public polling projects up, share it far and wide, and we'll get going on again. I think Civil War question. There's something else there too, I think, for the year, but for the most part, we can ask some different stuff. I think it's about time to add a Republican nomination ballot, maybe, but we need some other Democrats, to peg in 2024 hypothetical matchups, because I guess we'll have Gavin Newsom. We'll add Gavin. Nobody else is. It's just not competitive. It's just, it is not even fun to poll. Trump is just killing everybody. And I don't think Biden's going to be the nominee in 2024. So we better find somebody. But it's, up in the air right now. We'll have to see what happens when the midterms move on. People will definitely really pay attention more. So that may be what it's about. You got something to add, Laura? Did I miss something?
Oh, no, I was just waiting for you to say goodbye.
Oh, I know what you're going to do. All right. So with that in mind, I'll see you guys soon. All right. Go ahead, Laura. Take it away.
Deuces.
Bye, guys.
How much you wanna up it, that I can get you back inside your head, before the summer ends, and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be. I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. There's rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats is restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love, because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spare for overnight, to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You